Marvel's master of multiversal magic. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story and all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 451 George, the innate thunder-controlling extraordinary. Spirit binding and commanding. George, who had been indifferent, suddenly perked up. Spirit binding and commanding wasn't a technique of the Feng family of the World Alliance, so how could the Wang family know it? Wasn't the Wang family famous for their divine path technique? He thought Wang Bing was going to use the divine path technique to turn the tide, but instead, he was shouting about spirit binding and commanding. A large amount of black ki erupted from Wang Bing's body, and then he reached out and grabbed at his chest, actually pulling out his soul from within himself. How could this be? How could he know spirit binding and commanding? George's ears twitched, and he heard Feng Xingtong exclaim in the audience. A bright smile immediately appeared on his face. This is truly a case of finding something without even looking for it. Feng Xingtong was a decent guy, and he was too embarrassed to directly search his memories, but Wang Bing was different. He wouldn't even bat an eye if he killed him on the spot, let alone search his memories. He never showed mercy to his enemies. Ha, scared now? What's the Feng family's spirit binding technique? It's just a flawed imitation. Our Wang family obtained the complete spirit binding technique. Hearing the surrounding murmurs and seeing George's changed expression, Wang Bing's vanity was greatly satisfied. This was exactly what he wanted. Let me show you the true use of spirit binding technique, the spirit subjugation method. Unlike Feng Xingtong, who used a soul to possess the body in battle, Wang Bing quickly devoured the soul he held in his hand. As the soul entered his stomach, his internal energy immediately surged. Let me show you, you rogue cultivator, what true power is. Taking advantage of the surge in energy after subjugating the soul, and with his increased speed and strength, Wang Bing charged at George again. At this moment, Wang Bing's strength was completely different from before. Thunder explosion. Seeing Wang Bing approaching, George used the explosion spell again. This time, however, the same explosive spell only knocked Wang Bing back a few steps without causing any damage. Serves you right for being so arrogant. Kneel down. Wang Bing's face turned fierce. He spun around, using his footwork to get behind George, and kicked him in the knee, clearly intending to force him to kneel. Increasing the power of the explosive spell any further would be excessive. George put away his wand, and terrifying lightning erupted from his body. The explosive power he had just unleashed was already stronger than that of an average adult wizard. If it were increased further, it would be even stronger than that of an average auror. This was somewhat inconsistent with his status as a sixth-year wizard. However, he had already considered this. His goal in participating in the Luotian Grand Ceremony was to obtain the Tongshan Talisman, which would inevitably mean facing top wizards under 30 years old from various schools across the country. For a 17-year-old sixth-year wizard to use magic as powerfully as that of Tabor would be too exaggerated. Therefore, he devised a method that was both reasonable and would allow him to win the competition. 2 billion volts, a violent current erupted from George's body, forcefully shattering Wang Bing's protective black ki and entering his body through his kick. Stunned by the 2 billion volts, Wang Bing immediately let out a deafening scream. Sorry, I forgot to tell you, I not only learned magic, but I'm also a naturally gifted superhuman. Since acquired magic couldn't be too exaggerated, he could simply give himself the identity of a naturally gifted superhuman and use his innate abilities to crush all the other contestants. That solved the problem. Naturally gifted superhumans can use special abilities because their innate ki body operates according to specific rules, but this also makes it difficult for them to learn acquired techniques. However, this is not absolute. As long as you have enough talent, you can still research and develop your superpowers while learning acquired techniques, progressing together. His magical abilities are normal, but his innate abilities are powerful, which is understandable. He can actually control lightning innately. The audience on the stage was in an uproar upon hearing George's words. Today's match was truly spectacular. Not only did we discover the Wang family's incredible secret of possessing the ability to summon and control spirits, but it was even more powerful than the Feng family's. We also witnessed a naturally gifted individual capable of controlling lightning. Lightning magic is undoubtedly the most powerful of all Taoist arts, far surpassing ordinary five-element spells. Normally, Taoist sects use lightning magic with talismans or extensive preparations, making it quite cumbersome. The strength of Longhu Mountain lies not only in the Golden Light Mantra, but primarily in their ability to directly utilize lightning magic in combat. And this Jinbei Obeo has awakened the innate ability of lightning magic, born with it, truly incredibly lucky. Lightning magic is the ultimate counter to witchcraft. Even the 8 extraordinary techniques of spirit summoning seem destined to be defeated by lightning magic. If you're not good enough, no matter how powerful your cultivation is, it won't help. Someone like you, even if you got the heavenly talisman, you'd still be a weakling. Just like you learned the spirit binding technique, I was still trampled underfoot like a dog. George slapped Wang Bing to the ground, then stepped on his body, preventing him from getting up. On the surface, it seemed like humiliation, but in reality, he was invading Wang Bing's memories, copying the content about spirit binding technique. Even Voldemort, a big shot in China, would be paralyzed and unable to move after being shocked by George's 2 billion volts of electricity, let alone Wang Bing. Even though George had removed the electric shock while stepping on Wang Bing was still severely injured from the shock and unable to resist, let alone resist George's memory search. However, George did not make Wang Bing lose consciousness, because losing consciousness would be considered a voluntary surrender. I won't let you go. I definitely won't let you go, you audacious brat. How dare you? Just then, a roar rang out. It turned out that Wang Ai, who was watching his grandson's match in the stands, could no longer sit still and jumped down from the stands. Old Wang, the match isn't over yet, but Wang Ai had just jumped down when the referee blocked his way. The rules of the match stipulated that it only ended when one side voluntarily surrendered or lost consciousness. Get out of the way. However, Wang Ai, obsessed with his grandson, didn't care about the match at this moment. He unleashed his inner black energy, blasting the referee aside. If his grandson had only been defeated normally, he could only suppress his anger out of respect for Zhang Zihui and the strength of Longhu Mountain, waiting to find a way to retaliate later. But now his grandson was clearly injured and humiliated. How could he tolerate a mere rogue cultivator daring to disregard the Wang family like this? Anyway, at most he would apologize to Zhang Zihui later. Knowing Zhang Zihui as he did, Zhang Zihui wouldn't do anything to him for the sake of the bigger picture. I didn't expect these 8 extraordinary techniques to have so many reasons behind them. Interesting, truly interesting. At this moment, George not only obtained the complete content of spirit binding and commanding from Wang Bing's memories, but also gained a lot of hidden information about the 8 extraordinary techniques. Chapter 452 Come and Hit Me. Come and Hit Me. It turns out that the Wang family's spirit binding technique originated from Feng Zhanghao's grandfather, the leader of the World Alliance. Years ago, in order to obtain the 8 extraordinary techniques, the Wang family captured Feng Xianyang, the founder of spirit binding technique. To save his life, Feng Xianyang handed over the technique to the Wang family, vowing never to pass on the complete version to his descendants. Therefore, the Wang family obtained the complete version, while the Feng family is currently learning an incomplete one. In fact, long ago, many practitioners of witchcraft and key cultivation could form contracts with spirits and then borrow their power to fight. Famous examples include the Deng brothers, one of the contestants this time, who possessed a very powerful spirit. Spirits can be the souls of the deceased or animals that have cultivated qi for many years. The power of spirit binding technique lies in its ability to forcibly control powerful spirits to possess one's body without their consent. For instance, Feng Xingtuang had a spirit with extraordinary medical skills in life. After possessing him, it immediately transformed him into a divine healer. The complete version of the spirit binding technique is even stronger. Not only can it forcibly control those spirits, but it can also devour them and slowly digest them, permanently strengthening one's own qi. This is the spirit consumption technique that Wang Bing just used. Since the old man is here, let's search your memories too. Releasing Wang Bing and seeing Wang Ai leave the arena, George's heart stirred, and a coin appeared in his hand. Wang Bing's information was limited. He had only heard some things about the 8 extraordinary techniques from his grandfather, Wang Ai. If he wanted a comprehensive understanding, searching Wang Ai's memories would be better. To Wang Bing, Wang Ai was definitely a good grandfather, but to others, it was different. Just like behind every bratty child or bratty parents, different perspectives lead to different conclusions. From George's perspective, people like Wang Bing deserved to die, and Wang Ai, who indulged Wang Bing, whether good or bad, also deserved to die because they were both his enemies. Therefore, he had no psychological or moral pressure to search Wang Ai's memories, and he had already planned to find a time after the Luotian Grand Ceremony to eliminate this grandfather and grandson to prevent future troubles. Wang Ai, what are you doing? Just then, a golden light suddenly shot from the adjacent arena and landed in front of Wang Ai. The newcomer was none other than Zhang Zihui, the old celestial master of Longhu Mountain. Zhang Zihui had been watching the match between Huge Queen and Little Fire God from the next room when he suddenly sensed Wang Ai's murderous aura erupting from the side. Remembering that one of the contestants in the next match was Wang Bing, he knew something must have happened, so he quickly rushed over. Old celestial master, I'm just here to concede on behalf of my grandson. He's no match for that young man, there's no need to fight anymore. Upon seeing Zhang Zihui, Wang Ai was startled, withdrew his aura, and stopped, a forced smile spreading across his face. One unparalleled master, two heroes, Zhang Zihui was that unparalleled master. Even in his youth, Zhang Zihui could make the powerful figures of his time feel ashamed. No one knew how terrifying the over 100-year-old Zhang Zihui would be now. He certainly didn't believe he was a match for him, so upon seeing Zhang Zihui, his mind immediately cleared. Before Zhang Zihui was around, he could cause some trouble, and there was room for reconciliation afterwards. Now that Zhang Zihui was standing in front of him, if he tried to interfere with the match, it would be a real disrespect to Longhu Mountain and Zhang Zihui, and he would definitely get slapped. Oh my, I didn't expect your grandson to be such a waste, and your grandfather to be such a coward. What's wrong? You chickened out when you saw the old celestial master? Weren't you quite capable when you came down? Sigh, actually I was thinking of sparring with the Wang family head, but seeing how weak your grandson is, I guess you're not much better. Seeing the old celestial master blocking Wang Ai, George immediately started to mock him loudly and without any politeness. He looked like he was about to say, "Come on, you fucking hit me. Come on, hit me." That's right, he wanted to provoke Wang Ai into making a move. If Wang Ai made a move, the old celestial master would also make a move. If Wang Ai was knocked down by the old celestial master, it would be even easier for him to take the opportunity to grab him and search his memories. Even if the old celestial master didn't actually attack, if he simply revealed his strength and took down Wang Ai, no one would say anything, since he wasn't the one who struck first. At worst, it would provoke Wang Ai's vengeful nature, and he could attack him as soon as he left Longhu Mountain. As long as he provoked Wang Ai to attack him first, he could retaliate openly and legitimately, without incurring the wrath of the entire supernatural community. After all, it would be considered self-defense, at most a bit excessive. But that's understandable, since battles between supernatural beings are inherently dangerous, and accidental deaths are common. Upon hearing George's words, Wang Ai's expression immediately turned ugly. To be humiliated in such a public setting, to insult the Wang family, how could he tolerate it? However, seeing the old celestial master standing there, he took a deep breath and smiled. "You little brother, you really have guts. I admire you. Good job. After the Luotian Grand Ceremony, come visit my Wang family. I'll definitely give you a good welcome." The old man is quite patient. George raised an eyebrow, preparing to provoke Wang Ai again, but Zhang Zihui interrupted him. "Since you've already conceded, then Jin Bao wins this round." He then flicked his hand, sending out a golden light that enveloped Wang Bing and tossed it to Wang Ai, instructing Wang Ai to take Wang Bing away from the venue. However, the look in Wang Ai's eyes as he left was clearly filled with murderous intent. Seeing this, Zhang Zihui could only frown, unable to say anything. He understood the Wang family's style. Jin Bao's offense against the Wang family would likely cause problems later. This kid, but the next second, he noticed a slight upturn at the corner of George's mouth, and a feeling that surprised even himself arose in his mind. Maybe, this kid isn't the one who'll be unlucky, going head-on against the Wang family patriarch. This kid is damn brave, although it seems a bit irrational. I have to admire him. Ha ha ha, I like this kid, it's so damn satisfying to watch. At the same time, the audience on the stage and the supernatural beings watching the big screen outside all gave George a thumbs up in their hearts. Apart from a few disciples from major sects, Most of the people watching the match were independent cultivators and supernatural beings from some small families. These supernatural beings all had some opinions about the domineering and unreasonable Wang family. However, due to the strength and power of the Wang family, they could only swallow their anger. Seeing that George was not only strong, but also made the Wang family suffer a great defeat, how could they not feel secretly pleased? Especially those young and hot-blooded supernatural beings, they admired George's courage from the bottom of their hearts and cheered loudly for him. Supernatural beings all over the world had suffered at the hands of the Wang family for a long time. Wang family, you'd better hurry up, or I'll have to take the initiative to attack. Under the admiring gazes of everyone, George walked out of the venue with a leisurely air. After leaving Longhu Mountain, if the Wang family didn't take action against him, he wouldn't return to Beijing immediately. Instead, he would go and check out the Wang family's stronghold. He didn't believe the Wang family would tolerate him swaggering around near their territory with the Tongshan Scroll. Chapter 453 The Invitation from the World Society. This spirit binding technique is quite impressive. Leaving the venue, George walked towards the large screen, his attention drawn to the detailed information he had just acquired about spirit binding technique. His mood improved considerably. This technique specifically targets spirits, using a subtle, deceptive method to forcibly capture spirits far stronger than oneself and store them in the Danshan energy center. It can be used to possess and utilize the spirit's abilities, or directly consume to enhance one's own strength. Most importantly, the stronger one's own power, the stronger the spirits one can capture. Someone with Wang Bing's cultivation level could theoretically capture spirits that had cultivated for 1,000 years in this world, but only spirits, not physical bodies. If a spirit possessed a physical form, it couldn't be captured. If he mastered spirit binding technique, with his strength, capturing spirits of thousands, even tens of thousands, wouldn't be a problem. Of course, this only applies to spirits without physical form. Physical forms are not an option. The contestants this time, the brothers Deng Yaofu and Deng Yaokei, each possessed the spirit of a 1,000-year-old snake immortal, making them extremely powerful. They could use this spirit to possess their bodies and aid in battle. Theoretically, both Feng Xingtong and Wang Bing could be easily subdued with their spirit-binding abilities. However, if this snake spirit returned to its original body in Changbei Mountain, even Wang Ai would be forced to kneel, let alone Wang Bing. The Deng brothers, Yao Fu and Yao Kei, came from a shamanic family in northeast China, one of the 10 elders. This family worshipped 5 immortals: the fox immortal, the weasel immortal, the hedgehog immortal, the snake immortal, and the rat immortal. A shaman would only cooperate with one immortal in their lifetime, and to achieve this cooperation, it required the efforts and even lives of several generations. Therefore, shamans were extremely cautious in choosing their immortals. Once a cooperation was established, the shaman and the immortal would regard each other as family. This time, in order for the two brothers to gain recognition and obtain the Tongshan talisman, the snake spirit left its original body and entered the brothers' bodies in spirit form. Otherwise, with so many powerful spirits in northeast China, the Wang family would have already devoured them all if they didn't have their original bodies. But this was already quite good. In the future, across countless worlds, he could easily subdue powerful beings who possessed only souls and no physical bodies using the spirit binding technique. For example, Soren, whose physical body he had destroyed in Middle-earth, could be captured and consumed to enhance his power in an instant. Similarly, the great serpent Kuru, whom he sealed in the main world, could have his soul consumed even after his physical body was destroyed. In theory, once an enemy was defeated, leaving only their soul, he could use the spirit binding technique to capture it and then consume it to increase his strength. However, as a master magician who had experienced so many worlds and studied so much magic, including black magic, he had also noticed some drawbacks to the spirit binding technique. While the method of absorbing spirits was very effective, it couldn't completely absorb all the power of a spirit. Only a small portion could be absorbed. Moreover, if not controlled, it could affect the soul. Spirits possess consciousness. Absorbing their power would naturally also absorb their consciousness, and without restraint, one might eventually become insane. Therefore, he speculated that Feng Xianyang's handing over the complete version of the spirit binding technique while leaving an emasculated version for his descendants might not have been a gesture of loyalty. If he only used the spirit binding technique to possess a spirit without subduing it, it would actually be safer. But this wasn't a big deal for him. His soul was powerful, And he also possessed mental abilities, so when subduing a spirit, he could remove its consciousness as cleanly as possible. Moreover, as long as he found a high-quality spirit and didn't consume large quantities of ordinary ones, he could wait a long time afterward for the consciousness to be completely worn away before subduing the next one, without much problem. He also had so many clones, even if he only subdued one at a time and had to wait a long time before subduing the next one, it was actually equivalent to subduing several at the same time. This was because the strength of his clones was cumulative. This could be considered exploiting a small bug. Speaking of which, the spirit binding technique and the exhalation technique could be used very well together. He could first use the exhalation technique to blast out the enemy's soul, and then use the spirit binding technique to capture it. After learning about the spirit binding technique, he was increasingly looking forward to the 8 extraordinary techniques. These 8 extraordinary techniques couldn't unleash much power in the hands of people in this world, but in his hands, it might be a completely different story. Old Wong, it's over, how's it? Back in the open space outside the venue, George saw Wang Ming and Liu Xingyang standing by the big screen, clearly finished with their match. Lost? Wang Ming chuckled and scratched his head. Towards the end, he had used his trump card, the Yang Shen, which gave him a sliver of hope, but Xiao tricked him by holding his breath. Fortunately, his senior brother Liu Xingyang, who was watching from the sidelines, used his Yang Shen in time to take the brunt of Xiao's attack. Otherwise, if he had been hit, it would have taken him at least 7 days to recover his soul. But you know innate thunder magic, no wonder you were so confident you could let me bet on you. He stopped mid-sentence, remembering his senior brother was beside him. He hadn't dared tell his senior brother about betting 3,000 of his allowance on his baby to win first place. Not to mention whether his senior brother would criticize him for gambling. If he had actually won, his senior brother would definitely confiscate most of it, because he was afraid he would squander the money and affect his cultivation. Xiaojin, you were too irrational just now. The Wang family is not to be trifled with. After the competition, you'll come down the mountain with us back to Beijing and stay at the temple for a while. At this moment, Liu Xingyang no longer cared about the loopholes in Wang Ming's words and spoke to George with a serious face. Offending the Wang family would definitely lead to retaliation. But as long as he was with them, Baiyun Temple, as a major Taoist sect, although not as powerful as the Wang family of the 10 elders, still had connections with various Taoist sects, and Wang Ai would not dare to act easily. Once they returned to Beijing, as long as Jin Bao stayed at Baiyun Temple for a few months, the matter would fade away, and Wang Ai would probably not make any further moves. As for Jin Bao's family, there was no need to worry. If they were just ordinary people, there might be some problems. It was stipulated that superhumans could not attack ordinary people, but with the Wang family's strength, they could easily find some thugs to teach them a lesson, and as long as no one was killed, Nadu Tong would turn a blind eye. But Jin Bao's family were all truly wealthy people with deep connections to many powerful figures, and the Wang family's influence in the secular world was simply no match for them. If they dared to use supernatural methods, they would be crossing the line with Nadu Tong. Old Jin, don't be afraid. Join our Xiang Shui, and the Wang family won't dare to touch you. At this moment, Feng Xingtong and Feng Xiaoyan walked over. The Wang family knew how to use spirit binding and command, and their methods were even more complete than theirs. After discovering this, Feng Xingtong immediately notified her father, Feng Zhenghao. Feng Zhenghao is currently going to Wang Ai to demand an explanation. He also instructed him to take this opportunity to recruit Jin Bao into the Xiang Shui. Jin Bao was a rogue cultivator who studied foreign magic and was a naturally gifted lightning magic user. He was only 17 years old, and his family was extremely wealthy. If they could recruit him into the Xiang Shui, it would be of immense help to the Xiang Shui. Chapter 454 My gift, dare you accept it? I can consider it. Hearing the invitation from the Feng siblings, Liu Xingyang nodded to George. The Xiangxia Society, as a rising force in recent years, is not as strong as established elites like the Wang family, but it is certainly not weak either. Moreover, everyone knows the Xiangxia Society is eager to recruit talent and has a good reputation. If Jin Bao joins the Xiangxia Society, with Feng Zhenghao protecting her, there shouldn't be any major problems. Wang Bing isn't dead, and Jin Bao only said a few offensive things out of youthful impetuosity. The Wang family wouldn't go to war with the Xiangxia Society over that. Their Bayun Temple is indeed a major Taoist sect, but they mainly focus on closed-door cultivation and haven't developed secular influence. The entire temple doesn't have many members, and it can't compare to the Xiangxia Society. Well, I wonder if there's a chance to talk to the president. George's eyes darted around, and he had some new ideas. Killing Wang Ai and Wang wasn't difficult, but he couldn't wipe out the entire Wang family, nor did he have the time. So, cooperating with the Xiangxia Society seemed like a good idea. He also needed a domestic force to help him truly understand the world. This force couldn't be as focused on cultivation as Bayun Temple, nor as righteous as Longhu Mountain, nor a government agency like Nadu Tong. Ideally, it would be a businessman. Businessmen are adaptable, and they also need to be intelligent. Intelligent people don't do foolish things out of self-righteousness, and they can handle things for you without being told. In fact, according to Wang Bing's memories and the knowledge he learned during his cultivation, this world shouldn't have a high-dimensional force like the Heavenly Court. Everyone talks about ascending to immortality, but historical records don't show anyone actually becoming an immortal, and it's mostly just hearsay. Those immortals who are animals that attain ki aren't really immortals, even after hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation, they're still just that. Of course, it's also possible that Wang Bing's knowledge is limited, which is why he wanted to see Wang Ai's memories. Wang Ai's memories should help him make a more accurate judgment. If the upper limit of this world is really only at the level of the old celestial master, then he doesn't need to hide anything anymore. Okay, my father just went to cause trouble for the Wang family. Let's go wait in that room first. Feng Xingtong nodded happily as soon as he heard there was hope. He had thought this invitation wouldn't be easy, but it went much more smoothly than he expected. After saying goodbye to Wang Yi and Liu Xinggang, George and Feng Xingtong went to the room arranged for the Xiangxia Society at Longhu Mountain. Not long after, he met Feng Zhenghao, the president of the Xiangxia Society. Ha, indeed, heroes emerge from among the young. Mr. Jin, I've heard everything about you from Xingtong. Don't worry, as long as you join the Xiangxia Society, I will personally talk to Old Master Wang about the Wang family. There will be absolutely no problem. Feng Zhenghao, with half-white hair, glasses, and a suit, looking every bit the corporate CEO, warmly shook George's hand and said, "Old Master Wang." George raised an eyebrow. It seems the chairman's talk with Wang Ai went quite well. Our Feng family and the Wang family had some minor misunderstandings, but those have been resolved. Our two families will have further cooperation in the future. So, Old Master Wang will still give me this much face. Feng Zhenghao's expression remained unchanged, still as enthusiastic as ever. His two children, Feng Xian and Feng Xingtong, looked surprised, clearly not expecting their father's trouble with the Wang family to end like this. If the Jin family and the Li family can reach a cooperation agreement, my strength in the secular world will increase significantly. Feng Zhenghao looked at Jin Baobao as if he were looking at a mountain of gold. He wasn't particularly concerned about Jin Baobao's strength. Even with a naturally gifted lightning-controlling individual, it would take at least 20 or 30 years to truly become a powerful figure. Whether he would die prematurely was another matter. What he valued most was Jin Baobao's identity, the only son of the chairman of the Jin and Li families, two conglomerates no less powerful than, and perhaps even surpassing, his own Xiangxia group. As for Wang Ai, that wasn't a major problem. In that meeting, he disregarded his grandfather's past grievances and put on a show to lower Wang Ai's guard. However, Wang Ai, cunning as ever, also played along. In the end, they appeared amicable, even discussing future cooperation, like family. In reality, they were both scheming against each other. He wanted to destroy the Wang family and seize everything to strengthen the Xiangxia group, and Wang Ai shared the same idea. The rest was a matter of who had the more cunning. The Wang family was strong because of their numerous powerful individuals with extraordinary abilities, while the Xiangxia group was stronger in terms of secular influence and wealth. Therefore, as long as he pleaded for Jin Baobao, Wang Ai wouldn't refuse him, because the Xiangxia group was a more important target than Jin Baobao. Don't assume the Wang family's bad reputation meant they were all brainless. How could brainless people become one of the 10 elders? The Wang family only ever bullied those without backgrounds. They never bothered with or antagonized the disciples of the major sects. For greater profits, people like Wang Ai wouldn't care much about saving face. So Jin Baobao's troubles were nothing. This guy is very patient. He's someone who can accomplish great things. George's evaluation of Feng Zhanghao rose another level. Feng Zhanghao's visit to Wang Ai this time must mean he knew the inside story from back then, or perhaps he already knew. To be able to cooperate with the Wang family under such circumstances shows that Feng Zhanghao is definitely not weak and easily bullied. How could someone so weak and easily bullied build such a powerful force as the World Society and become one of the 10 elders? You have to understand, the Feng family isn't a large clan. Feng Xianyang even had to hand over his newly acquired spirit binding technique to save his life. But in just a few decades, Feng Zhanghao, through his own abilities, built the World Society, which can rival those centuries-old sects. In fact, if it weren't for its weakness in the area of supernatural beings, its secular business would far surpass all other supernatural forces. The secular power behind the World Alliance, the World Alliance Group, has a market value exceeding 300 billion. I can join the World Alliance, but before I do, I'd like to give the chairman a gift. I wonder if the chairman dares to accept it. What gift? Feng Zhanghao's eyes lit up noticeably upon hearing George's willingness to join. The entire Wang family, George said calmly. Feng Zhanghao's expression immediately stiffened. Mr. Jin, you can't say things like that carelessly. While you and the Wang family have had some friction, it shouldn't be this serious. Besides, the Wang family isn't as simple as you think. Wang Bing's strength is decent among the younger generation of the Wang family, but within the entire Wang family, it's nothing. He felt that Jin Bao might have become arrogant after defeating Wang Bing. Chapter 455 Night Raid on the Old Celestial Master. President, I know the Wang family's strength, you don't need to worry about that. I only ask you, if I eliminate most of the Wang family's extraordinary individuals, are you confident you can annihilate the entire Wang family, ensuring they can never cause any more trouble? George slowly stood up, his powerful aura instantly pressing down on Feng Zhanghao. Feng Zhanghao's pupils contracted instantly, feeling as if a mountain was pressing down on his body. Even the circulation of his internal energy seemed to slow down. He even had a strange feeling that if Jin Bao wanted to kill him now, it would be as easy as turning his hand. If that's really the case, then the Wang family will cease to exist. As cold sweat dripped down his forehead, countless guesses and thoughts flashed through his mind, and finally, Feng Zhanghao slowly replied. George withdrew his aura and strode out of the room. Very well, the day the Wang family is destroyed will be the day I join the World Society. I hope Chairman Feng will make good preparations these next few days. If things go smoothly, the Wang family may disappear in a week. Father, are you alright? After George left the room, Feng Zhanghao's legs went weak, and he almost lost his balance. Feng Xingtong and Feng Xian quickly stepped forward to support him. The siblings hadn't sensed the aura emanating from George, so they were somewhat bewildered by the current situation. It's alright, I'm fine now, very fine. Feng Zhanghao took a deep breath, calmed down, and immediately ordered Feng Xian and Feng Xingtong, Xian, contact your eldest brother and have him personally lead a team to London to contact the wizards you know there. Investigate all the information about Jin Bao in detail, the more detailed the better. Xingtong, contact your second brother and have him prepare plan number 1 in advance, ready to be activated at my command. Finally, you two remember this, the outcome of this tournament is not important, and we don't need to further enhance the reputation of the World Society. Follow Jin Bao. Fulfill any requests he makes, and report any developments to me immediately. Jin Bao's strength is strange, very strange. Even though he considers himself weaker than Wang Ai, his ability to control spirits is among the strongest in the domestic supernatural world. Apart from the old master, no one can give him such a terrifying aura just by their presence. Could it be that Jin Bao, at such a young age, is already comparable to the old master in strength? Can someone really be that talented? However, if that were truly the case, then Jin Bao's claim of wiping out most of the Wang family's superhumans wasn't just empty boasting. How could he not know what happened to his grandfather back then? He had been biding his time, building the World Society with the sole purpose of destroying the Wang family, avenging his grandfather, and reclaiming the complete version of the spirit binding technique. Therefore, he had been working on plan number 1, the destruction of the Wang family, and it was being overseen by his second son. Of course, he wasn't stupid, he wouldn't really place all his bets on Jin Bao. If Jin Bao didn't eliminate most of the Wang family's superhumans, plan number 1 wouldn't be activated, and he would continue cooperating with the Wang family, slowly devouring them. Yes, father. Feng Xian and Feng Xingtong exchanged glances. They didn't understand, but out of trust in their father, they quickly nodded and went to make their own phone calls. Jin Bao Bao, if you can really give me such a big gift, then sharing half of the world's society with you wouldn't be impossible, Feng Zhanghao murmured to himself as he plopped down in a chair in the room. Meanwhile, shortly after George left the room, he ran into the fat Zhang Long. Brother Jin, I heard you beat up Wang Bing of the Wang family and are even going to challenge the Wang family head. From today onwards, you're my brother Jin. So cool, it's just that the old master is there, it's not that exaggerated. George waved his hand with a smile. Zhang Long finished his chicken leg in a few bites and then invited, Brother Jin, we're planning a bonfire party tonight. It's mostly young people of similar age, are you coming? We'll see. George thought for a moment and replied. Tonight, he had something to do. Through Wang Bing's memories, he roughly judged that this world wasn't as complicated as he had previously thought. At the same time, Wang Bing's memories had piqued his curiosity about the 8 extraordinary techniques. So tonight, he planned to launch a night raid on the old master. On one hand, it was to further test the true strength of this top expert, and on the other hand, he wanted to see if he could gain a comprehensive understanding of this world through the old master's memories. Longhu Mountain was the oldest sect in the world of supernatural beings, and the old master was the strongest in this world. So, as for whether there are immortals who have ascended to heaven and whether there is a heavenly court, the old celestial master should have a more accurate answer. He generally doesn't force mind reading on non-enemies, but when it comes to this level of question, he's willing to make an exception. Having participated in the Luotian Grand Ceremony these past 2 days, he's gained a general understanding of the domestic supernatural world. Night fell, and a bright moon rose. Inside the dormitory, Wang Ming looked at Wang Yi's empty bed and scratched his head, saying, Master Wang isn't in the dormitory. Did he already go? Maybe. Lao Wang, you go first. I'm going to the bathroom, I'll come over later. After sending Wang Ming away, George used transformation magic, his body rapidly changing into the image of Li Zhuan, the patriarch of the Li family from the world of Cardcaptor Sakura. Then, he flew invisibly towards the old celestial master's residence. Whether the night raid on the old celestial master succeeded or not, he didn't want to reveal his identity. If the Wang family knew his true strength, even if he possessed the Tongshan talisman, they probably wouldn't dare to attack. If that were the case, he really wouldn't feel comfortable making the first move and eliminating the other person. It's like two people having a conflict, and the other person comes to retaliate the next day. If you retaliate and kill them, there's nothing wrong with that. But if the other person takes the initiative to back down the next day, and might even apologize, then going to their door and killing them would be a bit much. Hey, what's Wang Yi doing here? Just as he flew over the courtyard where the old celestial master lived, George spotted a familiar figure. It was Wang Yi, who wasn't in his dormitory. At that moment, Wang Yi had just climbed over the wall into the old celestial master's courtyard when the old celestial master noticed him and called him in. Come in, you outside. What are you doing loitering around the gate so late at night? Good evening, old celestial master, little Wang Yi, what mischief are you up to, sneaking around like this so late at night? Seeing Wang Yi enter the old celestial master's room, George pricked up his ears and began to listen to their conversation with his extraordinary hearing. After a moment, he understood Wang Yi's purpose. It turned out that the list of participants for tomorrow's competition had already been released after today's event. According to the competition list, if Zhang Jiulin wants to advance to the finals, he will face Tang Wenlong of the Tang sect, followed by the winner between Zhuge Qing and Wang Yi. In the old master's opinion, Zhang Jiulin can defeat Tang Wenlong, but it will be difficult for him to defeat Zhuge Qing, because even Zhang Lingaiyu's ability to defeat Zhuge Qing is uncertain. Wang Yi's visit to the old master was precisely to help him resolve this issue. Chapter 456. Where did this Taoist master come from? This Wang Yi is interesting. 10 minutes later, watching Wang Yi leave the courtyard looking exhausted, George couldn't help but stroke his chin. Previously, he was interested in Wang Yi because Wang Yi was Jin Yuanyuan's crush. As for Wang Yi's martial arts, that so-called Tai Chi, he wasn't interested. But now it seemed that Wang Yi knew more than just Tai Chi. Wang Yi said he was afraid the old master would try to assassinate Zhuge Qing for Zhang Jiulin's sake. causing his reputation to be ruined and having a huge impact on the entire world of supernatural beings. So he planned to defeat Zhuge Qing in the next round to save the old master from this calamity. But in the old master's view, while Wang Yi's Tai Chi was good, it might not be a match for Zhuge Qing's Wu Hao Kimen, so he tested him out. That's when things got interesting. Wang Yi didn't use Tai Chi, but Kimandunjia techniques. In George's opinion, Wang Yi's Kimandunjia techniques were even better than Zhuge Qing's, and his chaotic golden clapper move could even affect time. Judging from Wang Yi's true strength, let alone Zhuge Qing, even some older generation masters would probably be no match for him. However, the old celestial master's strength was even greater. Even the Kimandunjia magic that could affect time couldn't subdue him. A Kimandunjia technique that's even more powerful than Wu Hao Kimen. Could it be Feng Hao Kimen from the 8 extraordinary techniques? George had a guess in his mind. However, he didn't care about Wang Yi. Now that he knew, he would eventually find a way to get it from Wang Yi. Why not tie him up and take him back to be Jin Yuanyun's husband? Then he'd be family. At the same time, Wang Yi, who had just left the courtyard to go back to sleep, couldn't help but tremble. What's wrong? I have a bad feeling. Should I go to the inner realm to do some divination? As soon as this subconscious thought arose, he shook his head with a wry smile. Do I need to do divination? Since I've interfered in this matter, I should know that there won't be any good days ahead. The one in the heavens, after watching for so long, shouldn't you come down and have a chat? In the courtyard, the old celestial master saw that Wang Yi hadn't gone back to his room after leaving, but instead looked up at where George was. Taoists emphasize the unity of heaven and man, merging with the universe, possessing exceptional insight. The old celestial master is truly exceptional, living up to his reputation. Since the old celestial master had discovered him, there was no need to hide any longer. He dispelled his invisibility spell, and George landed in the courtyard. His strength lay in raw power. His stealth and concealment weren't particularly impressive. Even Feng Bao could detect him, so it was normal for a Taoist master like the old celestial master to be able to as well. Similarly, with his own level of stealth and concealment, he could easily be detected himself. Therefore, he wasn't surprised. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used a transformation spell to change his appearance beforehand. Fellow Taoist, what brings you here so late? Zhang Zihui looked at the unfamiliar old man in Taoist robes, a look of doubt on his face. The other party was clearly a Taoist, but how could he not recognize a Taoist of this age with such strength? Nothing much, just wanted to spar with the old celestial master. George lightly stomped his foot, and the entire courtyard floor was immediately covered with a thin layer of ice. Seeing this, Zhang Zihui narrowed his eyes and stroked his beard. It's been a long time since anyone has offered to spar with me. Since you're so enthusiastic, I can't let you down. This sparring session would be a good opportunity to test this mysterious old Taoist's methods, what his purpose was in coming to Longhu Mountain, and whether it would affect his plans. This isn't suitable. Let's go to the other side. With another stomp of his foot, ripples spread across the thin ice on the courtyard ground, and George and the old Taoist entered the mirror world. The mirror world. Sparring here, no matter how loud the noise, won't affect the outside world or disturb others' rest. This is the first time I've seen such magic. It seems I need to be more serious from now on. Zhang Zihui looked at the inverted world, his gaze finally becoming serious, his entire body enveloped in a golden light that seemed almost tangible. This guy's strength was definitely not weak. A flash of golden light, and Zhang Zihui was already in front of George, striking him in the chest with a palm. The speed and power were so great that George almost couldn't react. Compared to Wang Ai's speed in coming down from the audience to save his grandson, Zhang Zihui's speed was more than 10 times faster. As members of the 10 elders, their strength was on completely different levels. He estimated that if Wang Ai were to face the old celestial master, even using the spirit binding technique, he might not be able to withstand a single slap. He might not even have time to use it before collapsing. However, George was not Wang Ai. Just as Zhang Zihui's slap was about to hit George, George opened his mouth. Samadhi True Fire, a burst of 3 colored flames erupted, enveloping Zhang Zihui entirely. The intense heat rapidly consumed the golden light on Zhang Zihui's surface, forcing him to quickly withdraw and retreat from the flame's attack range. Samadhi True Fire, isn't that this huge family's strongest technique? And this huge family's Samadhi True Fire doesn't come from their mouths, so it couldn't possibly have such power. Regaining his footing and restoring his golden light, Zhang Zihui looked somewhat bewildered. At this moment, George reached out and took out a small ball, infusing it with magic power. The ball quickly transformed into a Taoist magic sword. This was a weapon forging method of the Li family, capable of forging magical weapons into small, portable balls that could also be stored and nurtured within the body. He had casually forged one while in Beijing, intending to later impersonate a Taoist key cultivator. Now it came in handy. Old Celestial Master, take this. Brandishing the magic sword, George chanted the Li family's Taoist incantation. Summon the wind and light, hasten as the law commands. With a swing of the magic sword, a hurricane erupted from it, transforming into a wind dragon that swept towards Zhang Zihui. Zhang Zihui's gaze turned solemn, his body crackling with lightning. Crimson Palace thunder, a terrifying burst of lightning erupted, clashing with the wind dragon in midair. Summon the god of fire, so be it. Summon the water dragon, so be it. Summon the emperor of thunder, so be it. Seeing Zhang Zihui use thunder magic to block the wind dragon, George brandished his magic sword again, unleashing the other three types of Taoist magic in succession. At George's current level, even using only the Li family's Taoist magic, the power he could unleash at full strength was no weaker than Zhang Zihui's. Therefore, when the four forces of wind, fire, water, and thunder pressed down on Zhang Zihui simultaneously, even with his full power unleashing his own thunder magic and golden light spell, he could only barely withstand them. His body was even suppressed to the point of being unable to move. Using a magic sword and incantations without talismans, and with such great power, where did this Taoist master come from? At this moment, Zhang Zihui's heart was full of doubts. He couldn't see it in the Samadhi true fire just now, but this was definitely using Taoist magic. However, the way this spell was cast did not belong to any sect he had ever seen. Chapter 457 I've offended the old Celestial Master. Excuse me, Elder Celestial Master. Using his Taoist magic to suppress the Elder Celestial Master's body, George flashed behind him and slapped him on the back of the head. Wood Dragon's crushing fist, not good. Zhang Zihui's eyes snapped open, his immense internal energy erupting. His golden light mantra and thunder magic were pushed to their limits, finally managing to turn around under the suppression of the four Taoist magics, raising his hands to protect himself. However, he immediately felt an irresistible, powerful force. Zhang Zihui had cultivated his life force for over 100 years, making his physical body incredibly strong. But George's numerous clones, combined with his Dragon Slayer mage physique, were equally formidable. Furthermore, seeing Zhang Zihui turn around, he temporarily strengthened his hand with giant magic. Therefore, George's slap landed on Zhang Zihui's protective hands, forcefully pressing down on his forehead and knocking him unconscious. Normally, with Zhang Zihui's golden light mantra's protection, he shouldn't have been knocked unconscious. However, Zhang Zihui's golden light spell and thunder magic power were used to resist the combined attack of the four Taoist techniques, leaving him unable to use them. He could only rely on his physical strength to withstand the attack, which led to this result. Done. After dispelling the four Taoist techniques and casting a stun spell on Zhang Zihui, George began to read Zhang Zihui's memories. However, as soon as his mental power entered Zhang Zihui's brain, it was blocked by a golden energy. This is a restriction. Looking at the dense Taoist incantations on the golden energy, George was immediately shocked. He had seen restrictions and barriers before, and he himself knew them and was very good at them, but he had never seen such a massive and powerful restriction before. It seems that this world is not as simple as I thought. The strength of the restriction before him was such that even if he used his full strength, he could not break it. Therefore, this could not be a restriction that Zhang Zihui had set for himself, but was very likely the legendary Celestial Master's pass. It is said that some major Taoist sects have special inheritances when passing on their positions, such as the Celestial Master's pass of Longhu Mountain. However, what exactly it is remains unknown, and it's just a rumor. No one knows if it's true. Now it seems that what's being passed down might be this massive restriction. Why is this restriction passed down through generations? What exactly is this restriction? And who casts it? An immortal? These are all questions George is very curious about. The memories he received from Wang Bing initially led him to believe that higher dimensional forces and immortals didn't exist in this world. But seeing the restriction in Zhang Zihui's brain, he's no longer certain. I can't see the memories, but it wasn't a wasted trip. With a Heavenly Master's pass restriction in place, He couldn't break through to view Zhang Zihui's memories, so he had to retreat. Returning to the normal world, George took the unconscious Zhang Zihui back to his room, left a note, and went back. The note was simple: he was a rogue cultivator in seclusion, and he had come out to have his cultivation verified by the Heavenly Master, but now he was going back to seclusion. What the Heavenly Master thought when he woke up and saw the note was irrelevant. Anyway, he wouldn't be using this disguise again for the time being. No rush, take your time. Zhang Zihui isn't here, but there are others. Leaving the old Celestial Master's courtyard, George returned to his normal appearance and walked towards the location of the bonfire party. The newly acquired spirit binding technique was enough for him to study for a while. Since this world wasn't as simple as it seemed, he could study and learn useful cultivation techniques and Taoist methods while slowly exploring the secrets of this world. His main body and his clones in other worlds were also steadily growing stronger, and there wasn't any major crisis requiring him to rapidly increase his strength. Steady progress and a solid foundation would make it easier to break through bottlenecks later. Hu Ji from Dongxiang village, is he planning to ambush me? As he walked through the deserted woods, George suddenly stopped. He noticed a strange person hiding in a tree not far away, one of the contestants in this competition, and his target was clearly him. Interesting. I just finished attacking the old Celestial Master, and now I'm being attacked myself. I'll see what your purpose is. After a pause, George continued walking forward. As he reached the tree, Hu Ji immediately pounced on him. His attacks were all aimed at vital points, clearly intending to leave no survivors. You think you can ambush me? A flash of electricity crackled around George, his right hand already gripping Hu Ji's neck, beginning to read Hu Ji's memories. Not from the Wang family. A look of surprise crossed his face. He had initially thought Hu Ji was sent by the Wang family, but reading his memories revealed otherwise. This Hu Ji was merely a puppet, manipulated by the four madmen of Guangxing, used to attract attention at the conference. Turning around, George saw two middle-aged men rushing towards him from a distance. Mr. Jin, please don't misunderstand. We are from the Lu family, responsible for monitoring this guy. Please have mercy. He might be connected to Guangxing and could still be useful to us. The Lu family. Fine, then you can have him. George's eyes darted around. Then he tossed Hu Ji to the two men. It seemed Guangxing had some ulterior motive for this Luotian grand ceremony, and Longhu Mountain and the Lu family had probably been preparing for it. I'll find some time to see what these Guangxing are up to. At this moment, some new ideas came to his mind. The little incident with Hu Ji didn't delay him for long. He soon arrived at the bonfire party location. It was incredibly lively there, with most of the contestants gathered, including Zhang Lingyu. Everyone was drinking and chatting, having a great time. However, it seemed a little too lively. This guy is really extraordinary. Looking at Zhang Chulin, who was drunk and running around naked while using the golden light mantra, George couldn't help but twitch his lips. In terms of shamelessness and thick skin, Zhang Chulin was indeed beyond ordinary people. Old Jin, why did you take so long to get here? Wang Ming waved and greeted George when he saw him arrive. George smiled and sat down. I ran into some trouble on the way, which delayed me a bit, and so, everyone ate, drank, chatted, and then sprawled out on the ground to sleep, not waking up until the sun rose the next morning. After another round of noise, everyone returned to their dormitories to wash up and eat, beginning the third day of the qualifying rounds. George had no opponent in the match that day, because his opponent on the original match schedule was Hu Ji, who had defeated Night Owl the day before. Chapter 458 Beyond Jin Song's Memories. Today's competition escalated further. Those who reached this stage were all formidable, and most contestants unleashed their most powerful techniques. Almost every match was incredibly exciting. Zhang Chulin, in his battle against Tang Wenlong of the Tang clan, abandoned his usual style, unleashing his full power and swiftly defeating Tang Wenlong with lightning techniques, shocking the entire audience. No one expected that the shameless guy who relied on various underhanded tricks to win would possess such terrifying strength. Tang Wenlong, after all, was a rising star of the Tang clan, having previously defeated almost all his opponents and being one of the favorites to win the championship. Because of this stark contrast, no one was discussing Zhang Chulin's identity as the inheritor of the key body source flow technique anymore. The focus was now on whether Zhang Chulin could become a celestial master. This surprised George and made him even more interested in Zhang Chulin. The key body source flow technique belonged to the 8 extraordinary techniques, so he definitely wanted to obtain it, and therefore, he would certainly want to get closer to Zhang Qiulan. Zhang Qiulan's intelligence was a good thing, at least with sufficient incentives, a deal should be possible. When encountering truly stubborn individuals who would rather die than compromise their techniques, it would actually cause him more headaches. Later, Wang Yi defeated Zhu Qing with his superior Qimendunjia technique. Feng Xian's special abilities clashed with Jia Zhangliang's flying knives, resulting in a narrow victory with both sides severely injured. Feng Baobao achieved a complete victory over Xiao Xiao. Zhang Lingai was forced to use his lightning technique to defeat Lu Linglong. Feng Xingtuang, due to the counterplay of his spirit-binding technique, directly captured Deng Yaofu's 1,000-year snake immortal. Since he already knew most of the contestants, George's attention was mostly no longer on the competition, but on searching for Guangxing. Moreover, he actually discovered that many Guangxing members had disguised themselves and hidden among the audience. How exactly did he discover them? At yesterday's bonfire party, he obtained the names of many Guangxing members from the crowd, and today he used a tracking spell to search. Good heavens, many of them pointed to the audience seats. Why are so many Guangxing members gathered at Longhu Mountain? Are they going to destroy Longhu Mountain? Late at night, after everyone had fallen asleep, George left his dormitory again. He planned to capture a few high-ranking members of Guangxing that night to search their memories, to see what Guangxing's true purpose was, and what benefits he could gain from it. At the ancient street hotel at the foot of Longhu Mountain. Looks like this is it. George looked at the golden arrow pointing directly at the hotel ahead and stealthily slipped inside. Wan Tao of Guangxing, a treacherous and ruthless weapon refiner, a veteran figure who became famous even before the 4 madmen, shouldn't be unaware of the purpose of this operation, right? With a light stomp of his foot, ice covered the entire room, and the elderly man in his 60s or 70s sleeping on the bed and a fat man in his 30s fell directly into the mirror world. What's going on? Wan Tao woke up with a start, his internal energy erupting instantly. Before he could even activate his magic weapon, he felt a heavy blow to the back of his head and passed out. His apprentice, Han Dan, suffered the same fate. His strength is average, carrying the unconscious Wan Tao and Han Dan. George began to read their memories. Compared to the previous old master, Wan Tao's strength was far inferior. Half an hour later, George erased their memories of being attacked, put them back in their hotel room, and then paraded away. I didn't expect that little Taoist boy to be Guangqing, the acting leader of Guangxing, and his target was Zhang Zihui's junior brother, Tianjin Song. This is interesting. Back at Longhu Mountain, George's lips curled up. He had obtained a lot of useful information from Wan Tao's memories, and this information was also very useful to him. It turned out that so many Guangxing people had infiltrated Longhu Mountain because they were summoned by Gongqing, the acting leader of Guangxing. Gongqing, out of curiosity about the Jia Shen rebellion and the 8 extraordinary techniques, had infiltrated Longhu Mountain 3 years ago as a little Taoist boy and seemed to have mastered some secrets. This time, he risked his own life, rallying many Guangxing masters to cause chaos at Longhu Mountain after the Luotian Grand Ceremony, aiming to lure away the old Celestial Master and steal Tianjin Hong's memories. George was happy because although he hadn't seen the old Celestial Master's memories due to the Celestial Master's degree, he might be able to get the information he wanted from Tianjin Hong. It was a win-win situation. Tianjin Hong, I apologize, he could get other things through a transaction, but since it concerned the existence of an immortal, he had to make an exception and look at Tianjin Hong's memories beforehand. He could always compensate later. Just because others couldn't do something about Tianjin Hong's crippled limbs didn't mean he couldn't. With the powerful vitality of the wooden dragon combined with healing magic, limb regeneration wasn't impossible. Moreover, he had saved Tianjin Hong's life and subdued the acting leader of Guangxing, which was enough. At most, he would have to take care of Zhang Qiulan later. As for taking a look at Longhu Mountain's techniques and Taoist arts, that was unavoidable. He wasn't the inflexible type, and while he didn't particularly want to acquire techniques this way, he simply accepted it when the opportunity presented itself. Using a tracking spell to pinpoint Tianjin Hong's location, George flew there invisibly. On his way to Tianjin Hong, he encountered something amusing. Feng Baobao was chasing Wang Yi wildly across the mountain with a shovel. She probably wanted to use the same trick again, burying Wang Yi so Zhang Qiulan could advance smoothly in tomorrow's competition. Based on what he observed of Wang Yi's strength, and the time-manipulating technique he used against the old celestial master, Zhang Jiulin wouldn't stand a chance. Unless Zhang Jiulin was willing to use the key source flow left to him by his grandfather. However, according to what he overheard last night, Wang Yi defeated Huge Qing today to pave the way for Zhang Jiulin and prevent the old celestial master's downfall from affecting the entire world of supernatural beings. Fate and Fall, a single stun spell easily knocked out the already crippled Bian Jinsong, and George began exploring Bian Jinsong's memories. The first half of his life was filled with joy. The days Bian Jinsong spent learning Taoism with his fellow disciples on Longhu Mountain, including a young Zhang Zihui and Zhang Jiulin's grandfather, Zhang Huai. In this memory, he witnessed all the martial arts and Taoist techniques of Longhu Mountain, such as the Golden Light Mantra, Thunder Magic, and various talismanic arts. Then came the news that his junior brother, Zhang Huai, had become sworn brothers with Wu Jinshen, the leader of the Guangxing sect, and that all the righteous sects had begun hunting down the 36 thieves. To save his junior brother, Zhang Huai, Tian Jinsong volunteered to go down the mountain to bring him back to Longhu Mountain. He met Zhang Huai at the dock, learned of what Zhang Huai and Wu Jinshen had done, and also learned that Zhang Huai could never return to the sect after that. He was captured and severely tortured by the righteous sects, his limbs crippled, barely surviving before being sent back to Longhu Mountain. To protect this secret, fearing he might reveal it in his sleep, he even replaced sleep with meditation, never closing his eyes again. The next chapter will reveal the secrets of the Celestial Master's ordination and the 8 extraordinary techniques. It's unclear when the comic will reveal this, so this is purely speculation. Please forgive any inaccuracies. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459 The Secret to Immortality. This secret also answered George's questions, helping him understand whether immortals and celestial courts truly existed in this world. According to Zhang Huai, Wu Jinshen, the leader of the Guangxing sect, discovered the 24 sections of the Heavenly Valley left by the Purple Sun immortal Zhang Baoduan, uncovering the truth behind the so-called ascension to immortality. Extraordinary beings have existed since ancient times, creating various cultivation methods, establishing sects, and many reaching the pinnacle of cultivation. Legend has it that these individuals have all ascended to the celestial realm, with the Purple Sun immortal being one of them. However, through their research on the 24 sections of the Heavenly Valley and the artifacts left by the Purple Sun immortal, they comprehended the 8 extraordinary techniques and discovered that this was not the case. There are no immortals, no celestial realm, and no celestial court in this world. The so-called ascension to immortality ultimately results in merging with heaven and earth, merging with the heavenly Tao, becoming part of the key of heaven and earth. All the leaders of the major Taoist sects who had experienced ascension to immortality were aware of this outcome, but like the restrictions of the Heavenly Master's ordination, they were also subject to related restrictions upon learning this truth. As for those who ascended to immortality, including the immortals like Master Jiang, the reason for placing restrictions on them and preventing the world from knowing the truth is simple. What is the purpose of cultivation? Cultivation is to ascend to immortality. This is the ultimate goal of cultivation. But when you know that your ultimate goal doesn't exist, that all your ideals and dreams are false, wouldn't you collapse? Except for a few with open-minded personalities, most cultivators would probably collapse due to the collapse of their beliefs. And the result would be the complete demise of all the major Taoist sects. The other 7 were alright, bound by restrictions and never able to reveal this secret, but Zhang Huai was different. Zhang Huai's understanding of the key source flow surpassed Wu Jinshen's divine spirit, allowing him to break down the restrictions left by Master Jiang, enabling him to reveal the secret. Therefore, he could not return to Longhu Mountain. Because he knew that if he returned to Longhu Mountain, his master, in order to preserve the foundation of the entire Taoist sect, would only have 2 choices. 1. Kill him, so the secret could not be discovered. 2. Pass on the position of Celestial Master to him, restricting him with the strongest restriction, the Celestial Master degree. However, once the Celestial Master's mandate is passed on to him, his master will ascend to immortality, merging with heaven and earth. In other words, it's no different from death. This is why, after learning this secret, Tian Jinsong felt that Zhang Huai couldn't return to the mountain. Returning would kill his master. Tian Jinsong also couldn't tell anyone this secret, especially not his master, because if he did, his master would risk everything to come down the mountain, capture Zhang Huai, and pass on the Celestial Master's mandate. This would indirectly kill his master. For the sake of the entire Taoist sect, Tian Jinsong didn't even dare to sleep, fearing he might reveal this secret that would damage the very foundation of Taoism. Zhang Huai also carried this secret, hiding his identity and going into hiding everywhere, even regretting participating in the 36 Brotherhoods and comprehending the 8 extraordinary techniques. There was another matter that concerned George. Zhang Huai had secretly mentioned that the 8 who had comprehended the 8 extraordinary techniques seemed to want to do something big with Wu Jinshen, to create immortals using the 8 extraordinary techniques. As for whether they had succeeded, Tian Jinsong didn't know. However, there's no rush. He can find the answers later when the opportunity arises. The most important thing now is that, based on Tian Jinsong's memories, he's basically certain that this world doesn't have a more powerful heavenly court or immortals. After that, he won't need to be so cautious and can truly do as he pleases. To be honest, he's still a little disappointed. Deep down, he hopes this world has a heavenly court and immortals. With his strength, although there would be danger, he could also reap greater rewards. The higher the ceiling of a world, the greater the achievements his clones can reach, and the greater the synergy between his main body and other clones. If there really is a heavenly court here, he can be cautious and ascend to immortality using the world's cultivation methods. He might even have the chance to consume elixirs and learn immortal techniques, which would be a good thing. Perhaps in the future, he could even attain sainthood, kicking the Eternals and punching the Court of Life. However, this is also good. The 8 extraordinary techniques and the cultivation methods and Taoist arts of the various sects in this world will also be helpful to him. He can research and improve his strength safely. If he really goes to a world similar to the primordial era in the future, it will lay a solid foundation and make it easier to reap rewards. The inability to ascend to immortality in this world is a problem with the laws of this world itself, not with the cultivation techniques. These techniques, if placed in the true primordial world where the laws are different, might allow for ascension. Leaving Tian Jinsong's courtyard, George returned to his dormitory and closed his eyes to study the cultivation techniques of Longhu Mountain, focusing on the interplay of life and nature. The techniques and Taoist arts of Longhu Mountain, including the ability to control spirits and generals, would keep him busy for some time. The next day was the 4th day of the Luotian Grand Ceremony. Having figured out the ins and outs of this world, George began his competition with unusual ease. From now on, he would enter play mode in this world, learning the Taoist techniques already acquired while searching for new ones. Today, in his quarter-final match, his opponent was Feng Xingtong. Their match received a lot of attention. The stands were almost full. No wonder, in the first 3 matches, Zhang Qiulin and Wang Yi, which were expected to be a clash of titans, ended with Wang Yi eating a steamed bun, asking Zhang Qiulin a few questions, and then conceding defeat. Feng Shan, still recovering from her match against Jia Zhanglian, conceded defeat after being persuaded by Feng Zhanghao. Zhang Lingao's match ended in a few moves, essentially meaningless. In this match, however, Feng Xingtong had used his spirit-binding technique to subdue Deng Yaofu's 1,000-year-old snake spirit, significantly boosting his strength. George had also revealed his identity as a naturally gifted lightning-controlling individual the day before yesterday, almost instantly killing Wang Bing. Brother Jin, I know I'm no match for you, and my father told me to concede, but I still want to participate, otherwise, I'll feel somewhat unwilling. Of course, if you need me to, I can concede on the spot, Feng Xingtong said somewhat embarrassedly, standing opposite George. Actually, these were words his father had instructed him to say. The reason was simple. Jin Yuan had unleashed an extremely terrifying aura that day, but his true strength hadn't been revealed, and his father worried it was just a facade. Now, with Feng Xingtong subdued, his possession of the 1,000-year-old snake spirit was extremely powerful, allowing him to subtly test Jin Yuan's strength. If Jin Yuan truly possessed power, then his father would take the gamble and fully cooperate. No need, just go ahead and make your move. George waved his hand, not caring at all. He had no burdens now, so there was no need for him to hide his strength anymore. Chapter 460 Brother Jin is protecting you. The memories he received from Tian Jinsong already gave him information about the Jia Shen rebellion and the 8 extraordinary techniques, so he no longer needed Wang Ai's side. However, these little ants were ultimately a menace, and he couldn't ignore the several ordinary family members of his clone. So it was best to deal with them according to the original plan. Moreover, he needed the future world society to help him handle some miscellaneous matters. He couldn't do everything himself. He also didn't have the time to spend creating a special force. It wasn't necessary. Once he had collected what he wanted and found nothing that could improve his strength, he planned to go into seclusion for a long time, like his panda clone. Please, Master Liu, possessed me. Feng Xingtong took out the spirit of the 1,000-year snake immortal Liu Kunshen, which he had obtained from Deng Yaofu, and then possessed his own clone's body, causing his internal energy to surge instantly. The key of the 1,000-year snake immortal Liu Kunshen was so powerful that, apart from the old celestial master and that freak Feng Bao, there were really few people present who could compare to him. Of course, having more ki doesn't necessarily mean greater strength. The power Feng Xingtong unleashed was vastly different from that of the old celestial master, even with the same amount of ki. However, even so, Feng Xingtong's overall strength was now not much weaker than Zhang Linggao and Zhang Qiulin. Brother Jin, I'm here, accompanied by Black Key. Feng Xingtong flashed and arrived beside George. However, before he could make a move, he saw a flash of lightning in front of him, followed by a sharp pain in the back of his head, and he fainted. It was George who had used lightning to strengthen his body, circled behind Feng Xingtong, and struck him on the back of the head. The winner is Jin Bao. As the referee announced the result, the audience in the stands immediately began to discuss. They hadn't expected Jin Bao to be so powerful, able to defeat Feng Xingtong, who was possessed by the 1,000-year snake immortal, in one move. Now, the championship title was hard to predict. Originally, everyone thought that the championship title belonged to Zhang Linggao. Although Zhang Qiulin had also shown amazing strength, he was still somewhat inferior to Zhang Linggao. Unexpectedly, Jin Bao appeared at the last minute. Ha, old Jin really didn't lie to me. My new phone is secured. In the stands, Wang Ming cheered loudly for George and for his future fortune of 120,000, leaving Liu Xinggang, who was watching from the side, somewhat confused. When did his junior brother become so close to Jin Bao? On the other side, Feng Xinghao, who had been watching the match, also had a bright smile on his face. He already had the answer in his heart. Based on the investigation results just sent back by his eldest son, plus Jin Bao's performance just now, he could confirm that the death of the Black Demon King in Britain was most likely related to Jin Bao. Therefore, Jin Bao's strength was probably only slightly lower than that of the old master. Saying that he could kill most of the superhuman experts in the Wang family was not an exaggeration. Plan number 1 could be launched. Besides Wang Ming and Feng Zhenghao, the old master was also in a good mood. Although he was somewhat disappointed by losing to a mysterious Taoist master the day before yesterday, Jin Bao's strength had given him a pleasant surprise. According to the current schedule, tomorrow's match is Jin Bao versus Zhang Linggao, and Zhang Qiulin versus Feng Bao. Feng Bao was arranged by Nadu Tong to protect Zhang Qiulin, so the outcome is predictable. Zhang Qiulin will win. If Jin Bao is weak and loses to Zhang Linggao, then the final battle will be between Zhang Linggao and Zhang Qiulin. Knowing his youngest disciple, he knows Zhang Qiulin is no match for him, which would be a waste of the entire Luotian grand ceremony he organized. He wants Zhang Qiulin to become the celestial master for 2 reasons. First, to protect him. Once Zhang Qiulin becomes the celestial master of Longhu Mountain, no one will dare to target him, thus making up for his guilt towards Zhang Huai. Second, to use the celestial master's restriction to limit Zhang Qiulin's investigation of what happened back then, so that even if Zhang Qiulin knows the answer, he won't be able to reveal it. Therefore, in the end, to ensure Zhang Qiulin's victory, he has to use some tricks, like drugging Zhang Linggao. However, if Jin Bao wins against Zhang Linggao, then it doesn't matter. Because of the duel between Jin Bao and Zhang Qiulin, even if Jin Bao wins, she won't become the celestial master. She can only obtain the Tongshan talisman. The celestial master will still be Zhang Qiulin, who came in second. It's a sure thing. On the 5th day of the Luotian grand ceremony, in the morning, Feng Bao faced off against Zhang Qiulin, displaying Oscar-level acting skills that infuriated the audience, who chased after them for miles after the match. In the afternoon, George faced Zhang Lingayu. Brother Jin, you absolutely have to win. Before going on stage, George encountered Zhang Chulin, whose expression and voice were more excited than anyone else present. George knew why. Of course, if he defeated Zhang Lingayu, Zhang Chulin could inherit the Celestial Master's position. He even suspected that, given Zhang Chulin's shamelessness, he might simply concede defeat in tomorrow's final. Little Zhang, come here. Brother Jin wants to chat with you for a bit. Brother Jin, what do you need? Zhang Chulin didn't mind George, who was younger than him, calling him Little Zhang, and happily ran over. George, with his arm around Zhang Chulin, laughed. I know what you're thinking. Zhang Lingayu is no match for me, so the position of Celestial Master is definitely yours. To be honest, I'm not interested in anything else. My purpose in attending the Luotian Grand Ceremony is to obtain the Tongshan Talisman. Similarly, I'm very interested in your key body source flow. Brother Jin, I can tell you're no ordinary person. But to be honest, I really don't know about the key body source flow. My grandfather only taught me the Golden Light Mantra and Thunder Technique. Both the heads of the Wang and Lu families have approached me and verified it. Many people know this. Zhang Chulin looked completely innocent, showing no sign of lying. George patted Zhang Chulin on the shoulder. I know you're suspicious, but don't worry, I won't forcibly take your key source. I prefer peaceful transactions. You're a smart man, you should know what you need most. Perhaps you don't yet understand my true strength, but that's alright, you'll understand in a few days. The secrets of the Jia Shen Rebellion, the secrets of the 8 extraordinary techniques, I can tell you anything if you're willing to exchange your key source. Or if you encounter any major trouble, I can protect you. There's no one in this world that your brother Jin can't protect. Leaving Zhang Chulin with his pupils contracted and his body visibly stiff, George walked into the competition venue with his hands behind his back. Zhang Chulin could deceive others, but he couldn't be deceived. His mental abilities clearly indicated that Zhang Chulin had just lied. Zhang Chulin had definitely obtained the inheritance of the key source. However, he wasn't in a hurry now. After all, he had just obtained the Longhu Mountains techniques and the spirit binding and commanding techniques, and next was the Tongshan Talisman. And there were the various techniques and Taoist arts he would exchange for the Tongshan Talisman. Anyway, with the tracking spell, as long as Zhang Chulin doesn't die, he can find the other party at any time, so he can take his time. Chapter 461 To survive in this world, you need a background and influence. What does this guy mean? How could he possibly know the secrets of the Jia Shen Rebellion? Is he trying to fool me? Seeing George enter the venue, Zhang Chulin fell into deep thought. Chulin, what's wrong? Seeing Zhang Chulin's strange demeanor after his private conversation with George, Su San asked, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Zhang Chulin didn't hide anything and repeated everything George had just said. This Jin Bao is indeed not simple. Su Si frowned. Zhang Chulin's heart skipped a beat. What did you say, fourth brother? After your reminder last time, we conducted a detailed investigation into Jin Bao. This is the investigation report that just arrived. We haven't had a chance to tell you yet. Su Si sent the investigation report to Zhang Chulin's phone. Zhang Chulin's expression changed several times after reading it. If he really has that much strength, then what he said might not be so boastful. But how could he know the secret of the Jia Shen Rebellion? To be honest, I even doubt he's Jin Bao. His current strength and behavior are completely different from what was described in the investigation report at school. If he's not Jin Bao, but someone else in disguise, then it's hard to say. Su Sam stepped forward and offered his guess. Zhang Chulin nodded. Let's wait and see. If he really knows the secret of the Jia Shen Rebellion, then many things can be discussed. He didn't care about key body source flow or the 8 extraordinary techniques at all. If handing over key body source flow could ensure his safety and help him find out Feng Bao's background, he would have handed it over long ago. However, before confirming whether Jin Bao was bluffing him, he wouldn't admit to inheriting key body source flow. Now that everyone had finally gotten rid of the big trouble of the key body source flow's successor, they didn't want to be back to square one. Jin Bao versus Zhang Lingayu. The match begins. As the referee's voice came from the arena, Zhang Chulin and the other three quickly went to the audience seats. At this moment, the audience seats were almost filled with everyone present at the Luotian Grand Ceremony. Who would prevail in the battle between the thunder technique of Longhu Mountain and the innate thunder? Mr. Jin, please. Zhang Lingayu bowed very politely to George, Then his entire body was enveloped in golden light. George returned the bow. Master Lingayu, use your full strength. Zhang Lingayu was an upright and good person, and he had just received many things he wanted from Tian Jinsong, including the Taoist techniques of Longhu Mountain. Therefore, he intended to give his opponent some face in this match. Northern Azure Pool, having watched George's matches, Zhang Lingayu dared not be careless and used his full strength from the start. Dark Yin Thunder enveloped George from all directions. 30 minutes later, Zhang Lingayu looked at the unharmed George and slowly lowered his head. I concede, initially, because he couldn't accept his imperfections and the Yin Thunder, he used his usual method to control it. But when he realized that this level couldn't harm his opponent, he finally overcame his psychological barriers and unleashed his full Yin Thunder power. However, no matter how hard he attacked, he eventually exhausted all his internal energy and still couldn't harm his opponent in the slightest. It turned out that what his master had said that morning was true. He might not win this match. Master Lingayu's Yin Lightning is indeed powerful. I was constantly on the defensive. If I didn't have more internal energy than Master Lingayu, I really wouldn't have been able to withstand it. What a close call. Seeing Zhang Lingayu concede, George laughed and explained loudly. The spectators, who had been incredulous at Zhang Lingayu's defeat, finally recovered from their astonishment and began to discuss amongst themselves. I thought Master Lingayu's attacks were completely ineffective, but it turns out that's how it is. It seems Master Lingayu is just a little lacking. Yes, I was wondering how the difference could be so great, but it was truly spectacular. I didn't expect Master Lingayu's Yin Lightning to be so powerful when fully unleashed. That Jin Bao is even more impressive, managing to withstand the entire attack until Master Lingayu's energy was exhausted. Is that so? Zhang Lingayu looked up at George, a suspicious look in his eyes. He felt that George seemed to have no trouble at all. Yeah, don't let my appearance fool you. I'm just putting on a brave face. George winked at Zhang Lingayu and smiled. In reality, with his understanding of lightning of Zhang Lingayu's level couldn't even get close to him. Only the old Celestial Master's lightning could have any effect. So what he just said wasn't true. He was just trying to comfort the little guy, telling him that Zhang Jiulin probably wouldn't become the Celestial Master, while Zhang Lingayu was likely the next generation, to prevent him from developing a psychological trauma. Of course, a few people noticed something amiss. For example, the old Celestial Master, whose lightning magic had reached a transcendent level, and Feng Zhanghao and Zhang Jiulin, who knew in advance that George's strength was abnormal. As for the others, they basically believed George's words, at most thinking he was holding back, but definitely not much. After all, Jin Bao was only 17. This included Wang Ai from the Wang family. It seems the Tongshan talisman is now in this kid's hands. Let's go down the mountain, trouble's brewing here soon. We should lay low for a while and prepare to teach this brat a lesson. Wang Ai, leaning on his cane, glared coldly at George standing in the hall. It was certain that Guangxing was making a big move against Longhu Mountain. A large number of Nadu Tong employees were gathering there. He didn't want to get involved and wouldn't help Longhu Mountain. He'd rather see Longhu Mountain destroyed, so the world of supernatural beings wouldn't have such a powerful obstacle, and they wouldn't be so constrained in their actions. Similarly, since the key source flow was hopeless, the Tongshan talisman couldn't be let go. Besides, Jin Bao, who obtained the Tongshan talisman, had injured his most beloved grandson. Don't worry, Patriarch, a large number of skilled fighters are on their way. As long as he's alone, we can make him disappear without a trace. A middle-aged man beside Wang Ai bowed and replied. What did Feng Zhanghao say? If Jin Bao joins the World Society and is protected by Feng Zhanghao, things will get complicated. Feng Zhanghao said Jin Yuan refused to join the World Society, so he won't interfere. Very good. We don't need to kill him then. Just cripple his meridians, break his arms and legs, and make him a cripple for life. Hearing that Feng Zhanghao wouldn't interfere, Wang Ai's wrinkles deepened, but the coldness in his eyes didn't lessen. As long as he was spared, even if Nadu Tong eventually found out it was their Wang family, they wouldn't pursue it too much. Jin Bao wasn't an ordinary person, but a superhuman. As long as superhumans didn't harm ordinary people or disrupt the overall balance, Nadu Tong could tolerate it. Besides, who could prove it was their Wang family? Jin Bao, a rogue cultivator, obtained the heavenly talisman. Many forces would be eager to act. Any family could make a move. Why should it be said that their Wang family did it? This kind of petty squabble is his forte. The only problem is that Jin Bao is a rogue cultivator. No one will make a big fuss over a dead man afterward. As for strength, what good is it if you can beat 1, 10, or 100? Do you think you're some kind of ancient master? In the world of supernatural beings, personal strength isn't the most important thing. Sometimes, background is. It's like that line from a movie, are you better at fighting? What good is fighting? To survive, you need power and connections. This treacherous world of supernatural beings, since ancient times, has been no different from those gangsters played by ordinary people, except they were a bit stronger individually. With money in one hand and people in the other, with money, people, and power, you have nothing to fear. Chapter 462 The Bug of Technique Fusion. On the 6th day of the Luotian Grand Ceremony, in the finals, George faced off against Zhang Chulin. As George predicted, Zhang Chulin, who cared nothing for winning or losing and was solely focused on finding the Celestial Master to uncover the truth, immediately conceded defeat upon entering the arena. Therefore, George won first place in the Luotian Grand Ceremony, and Zhang Chulin, who came in second, gained the right to inherit the Celestial Master's position. On the 7th day of the Luotian Grand Ceremony, George obtained the Tongshan Talisman from Lu Jin, acquiring his second of the 8 extraordinary skills. In the afternoon, many contestants and spectators began their journey home. Among them were Liu Xingyang and Wang Ming from Baiyun Temple. It's good to stay with the World Alliance for a few days. If you need any help, you can contact us. Don't worry, I'm perfectly safe. I'll come find you when I get back. George waved goodbye to the two. To reassure Liu Xingyang and Wang Ming, he directly told them that he had joined the World Alliance. This wasn't entirely a lie, he had indeed reached an agreement with the World Alliance. Brother Jin, we received news that many experts from the Wang family have gathered at the foot of Longhu Mountain, probably intending to attack you. Father asked you if we need to send experts to assist you. After Liu Xingyang and Wang Ming left, Feng Xingtong slowly approached. George waved his hand, no need. You can leave directly after you go down the mountain. Don't worry about me. After we receive news of their deaths tomorrow, we can concentrate all our efforts on taking over their businesses. The Wang family was nothing more than ants in his eyes. Then, Brother Jin, be careful. Feng Xingtong nodded with some concern. Although he still didn't quite believe that Jin Bao could handle so many experts from the Wang family by himself, including the Wang family head, Wang Ai, he had no choice but to follow orders since his father and Jin Bao had reached an agreement. At night, George, who was invisible and floating in the air, looked down at the Quangxing superhumans searching his dormitory and a smile appeared on his face. The show is about to begin, damn it, he wasn't hiding in the dorm, and we don't even know where he went. Outside the dorm, a Quangxing member holding a tattered banner shook his head. Yuan Tao spat on the ground, damn it, even though it's in line with the sect leader's plan, we can't come away empty-handed. You bunch of useless little brats, you can't even keep an eye on him, senior, that guy is very strange. I clearly saw him enter the dorm, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye, another Quangxing member replied helplessly. Just then, an old man with white hair led several young people out of the woods behind them. Yuan Tao, you little brat, so you've always wanted the Tongshan Talisman, huh? Then why didn't you just ask me for it? Don't you have any shame sneaking around here? The newcomer was Lu Jin of the Lu family, one of the 10 elders, followed by his granddaughter and some contestants who were on good terms with the Lu family. Senior Lu, it's been so many years since we last met. My father misses you terribly down there. Yuan Tao's face immediately contorted with resentment upon seeing Lu Jin. His father had died at Lu Jin's hands. I'm not in a hurry. I'll go down and find him sooner or later, but before that, I'll send a few more of Quangxing's scourges down to keep him company. Lu Jin waved his hand, and the two sides clashed instantly. At the same time, battles broke out in various parts of Longhu Mountain as Quangxing supernatural beings launched a full-scale attack. Reverse life triple technique, seems quite good. George, hidden in the sky, didn't go down to help. Quangxing had a plan, and Longhu Mountain, the Lu family, and Nadu Tong also had countermeasures in place. The current situation was quite favorable. What he was more concerned about was the reverse life triple technique that Lu Jin displayed in the battle. From Yuan Tao and Bian Jin Hong's memories, he knew that this was a unique skill from the destroyed Zuanmen Sanai sect. The Sanai sect's philosophy was that at birth, the innate ki manifests in the limbs and bones as a natural process. Following the natural order is inevitable, yet death is unavoidable. Therefore, one must reverse one's cultivation to return to the state of primordial ki in pursuit of a sliver of life. This technique allows the physical body to be condensed into energy, transforming between energy and physical form. Not only does it greatly enhance physical strength, but it can also repair bodily injuries through this transformation, reaching its peak and becoming virtually immortal. In fact, due to the powerful vitality of the wood dragon and the desperate virus, his physical regeneration ability is already quite strong. He can usually regenerate severed limbs. If he could combine this with a reverse divine triple technique, his regeneration ability would likely be even stronger. With further research in the future, he might even reach a point where, as long as the soul remains, the physical body can completely regenerate in an instant. Therefore, he is very interested in this reverse divine triple technique. To be honest, the upper limit of this world is not high. The destructive power of various Taoist arts is only average, even less than that of high-tech weapons. However, many techniques are truly beneficial for the cultivation of the physical body, soul, and mind. However, while the techniques are good, cultivating them all is not an easy task. The cultivation methods of Bayun Temple, Longhu Mountain, and the Sanai sect, these are all renowned schools whose techniques have been passed down for many years. It's not that once you obtain a technique, you can cultivate them all individually and combine all their advantages. Many techniques operate along different meridians, inherently creating conflicts. Otherwise, someone would have already acquired all the techniques and cultivated them simultaneously. Wanting to strengthen the soul and manifest a yang spirit, simultaneously cultivate the golden light of life and death, and instantly recover from physical injuries is simply wishful thinking. Only a true immortal, having reached the pinnacle of Taoist cultivation, could hope to combine the advantages of these techniques to create a new, more powerful one. George is neither, nor can he. He merely possesses some of Li Zhuan's memories, and Li Zhuan, after all, only read a lot of Taoist books. His cultivation aptitude was average. Perhaps after 10 or 20 years of research, he might be able to achieve it. Fortunately, while he can't currently fuse the techniques of various schools, he can exploit a bug related to clones. All his clone abilities are superimposed. What does this mean? This means that as long as his clones practice different techniques, the effects of those techniques will be superimposed to achieve the same goal. For example, his main body practices the Longhu Mountain technique, his clone in this world practices the Bayun Temple technique, and Harry Potter's clone practices the Sanai sect technique. Therefore, each clone can possess the effects of the Golden Light Mantra, the Yang Spirit Mantra, and the Reverse Life Triple Technique. Zhang Zihui has been lured away, and Rong Shan, who is protecting Tian Jinsong, has also been lured away. Gong Qing's acting is quite good, seeing the old celestial master go down to rescue Lu Jin, who had been driven mad by the four madmen, and Rong Shan, who was left behind to protect Tian Jinsong, also being tricked away by Gong Qing. George couldn't help but nod. Gong Qing, as the acting leader of the Guangxing sect, wasn't particularly strong, only slightly stronger than Zhang Linggao, and not even as strong as Wan Tao. But his mind was definitely sharp, and his acting was superb. Everyone was fooled by him. Chapter 463 The Great Benefactor of Longhu Mountain. This is the double-handed technique. George's eyes lit up when he saw Gong Qing summon a bespectacled Guangxing youth who extended a large hand made of blue qi from his body to search Tian Jinsong's soul. What an unexpected surprise! When Tian Jinsong met Zhang Huai, there was another person present, Duan Muying, the eldest daughter of the medical family Jishidang. She was also someone who had mastered the double-handed technique, one of the 8 extraordinary techniques. Therefore, Tian Jinsong had seen the double-handed technique before. The extraordinary person below, named Lu Liang from the Lu family, was using the so-called Lu family's inherited ability, the soul enlightening technique, which was the blue hand from the double-handed technique. We can't wait any longer. Seeing Lu Liang about to search Tian Jinsong's soul, George knew the time was almost right. He quickly went to the door and deliberately helped up a Taoist priest who had been knocked unconscious by Gong Qing, shouting, "Taoist priest from Longhu Mountain, what's wrong? Oh no, someone's coming. I can't be disturbed when I'm using the soul enlightening technique." Hearing the sound from the doorway, Lu Liang's expression changed. Gong Qing frowned. "You do the soul search, I'll deal with him at the door and then guard the door for you. Help!" Tian Jinsong immediately shouted, But before he could finish, Lu Liang interrupted him with his soul-searching technique. However, before Lu Liang could actually use the soul-searching technique to copy Tian Jinshong's memories, a bolt of lightning struck from outside. Ah! Lu Liang screamed, his hair standing on end from the lightning, and the soul-searching technique was interrupted. "Who are you people? What are you doing here?" George pretended to have just noticed and stepped in, questioning him sharply. Tian Jinshong saw George and recognized him as the top player in this competition, a man of considerable strength. He immediately shouted, "They're all Guangxing demons. Run. Go find Zhang Zihui, it's him, this is troublesome." Guangqing also recognized Jin Baobao, and his expression changed as well. With Jin Baobao's strength, if he were determined to escape, he would be hard to stop. If the old celestial master really came, then finding the secret he wanted through soul-searching today would be a problem, and even escaping Longhu Mountain would be a problem. So he immediately took out his weapon, the silver needle, and unleashed his full power to kill Jin Baobao here. Since he's a Guangxing demon, then die. Seeing Gongqing attack, George took out a coin and flicked it lightly. Electromagnetic cannon, how could this be? Gongqing tried to dodge, but found that he couldn't dodge at his speed. Moreover, he could clearly feel the terrifying key carried by the coin. If he were hit, he would definitely die. He never expected that Jin Baobao's strength was so much stronger than he had shown during the competition. Boom! The coin accurately hit Gongqing's forehead, directly piercing his skull. My god, one move and he's dead. Lu Liang, who had recovered, was so scared that he almost peed himself. The sect leader's strength wasn't that great, but it was definitely not weak either, otherwise, how could he have won over the masses? But he was instantly killed by Jin Baobao. Just who was Jin Baobao? He was far too strong, channeling his inner energy into his legs. Lu Liang rushed towards the window at his maximum speed, trying to escape. He knew that if Gongqing had been defeated so easily, his own strength was no match for Jin Baobao. Did I say you could leave? George casually flicked a bolt of lightning, and Lu Liang was once again paralyzed on the ground. Since Gongqing had already become suspicious of Tian Jinshong and had made a guess about the 8 extraordinary techniques, the old celestial master would inevitably kill Gongqing upon his arrival to protect the secret. However, as the acting leader of Guangxing, Gongqing would certainly be captured alive and interrogated by Nadu Tong and other sects. To avoid putting the old celestial master in a difficult position, he simply killed him directly. The reason was simple: Gongqing wanted to kill him, and he couldn't hold back and killed him in return. No one could say anything about that. This also helped Longhu Mountain resolve a small problem, serving as some compensation for taking Longhu Mountain's cultivation techniques and Taoist methods. As for Lu Liang, since he used the dual-handed technique, he naturally wouldn't let him go. He'd also take the opportunity to search his memories to see what was going on. "Master Tian, are you alright?" While talking to Tian Jinshong, George grabbed Lu Liang's head and began searching his memories. Tian Jinshong looked at George, his face full of gratitude. "Thank you so much for your help, Mr. Xiaojin. Otherwise, I might have been killed by those 2 Guangxing beasts. I was just practicing the Tongshan talisman in the nearby grove tonight when I heard fighting everywhere. I came out to investigate and saw a Taoist priest knocked unconscious at the entrance." George made up a story on the spot. After chatting with Tian Jinshong for a while, he had already read through all of Lu Liang's memories. According to Lu Liang's memories, the Minghan technique was a unique innate ability of the Lu family. The higher a member's talent in key cultivation, the easier it was for them to awaken this ability. But there was something strange about it: the Lu family didn't have this ability before. It only appeared after 1944, that is, after the Jia Shen Rebellion. Based on what he knew, the conclusion was obvious. After the 8 extraordinary techniques appeared, many sects, under the pretext of eliminating the 36 thieves, hunted down the creators of the techniques. Feng Xianyang was captured by the Wang family and, to save his life, contributed the spirit-binding technique. Duan Muying was likely captured by the Lu family. Therefore, the Lu family obtained the dual-hand technique. As for why it was renamed the Bright Soul technique and claimed to be an innate ability, it was naturally to prevent other sects from seizing it. Unfortunately, Lu Liang only knew the blue hand. To obtain the complete dual-hand technique, he would have to make a trip to the Lu family later. The blue hand could manipulate souls and memories, while the red hand could repair the body and cure all diseases. As long as there was still a breath left, it could be saved. This was different from the 3-1 sex reverse life triple technique, which only worked on the user and couldn't save others, while the dual hand technique could save others in addition to the user. Uncle Dion, Junior Brother Dion. Just as George and Dion Jinsong were chatting, the outer door was suddenly pushed open, and Rong Shan, the old celestial master, and Zhang Chulan rushed in. Seeing Gongqing lying dead on the ground and Lu lying unconscious, they were immediately shocked. They only breathed a slight sigh of relief when they saw Tian Jinsong unharmed and George standing beside him. What happened here? Xiao Yuzi is the leader of Guangxing. He wanted to kill me, but luckily Mr. Jin happened to pass by. Tian Jinsong quickly recounted the events, omitting the parts where Gongqing interrogated him about secrets, only saying that Gongqing wanted to kill him to take revenge on Longhu Mountain. After listening, Zhang Weizi solemnly bowed to George. Thank you, Mr. Jin, for saving my junior brother's life. Longhu Mountain owes you a great favor. In Zhang Weizi's eyes, Jin Bao had saved not only his junior brother's life, but also a secret that absolutely could not be known. Therefore, he remembered this favor. Chapter 464 Entrapment. I just happened to be passing by, Master, you flatter me. George waved his hand with a smile. Having received so many benefits from Tian Jinsong's memories, this little thing was indeed nothing to him. I just took a look at Master Tian's severed limbs, and it's not entirely hopeless for them to recover. If Master trusts me, I can try to help them. Junior Brother Tian's limbs can be restored. Zhang Zihui's eyes lit up immediately upon hearing this. One of the reasons he traveled around the world was to find a way to restore his junior brother's limbs, but unfortunately, he still couldn't. The magic of the wizards in London was indeed quite effective in healing, but it couldn't regenerate severed limbs. Logically speaking, Jin Bao shouldn't be able to do it either. Could it be that some new magic has come out there, or is Jin Bao exceptionally talented? Of course, it's not impossible. After all, at this age, to have such strength is definitely a genius, and geniuses cannot be judged by ordinary standards. It's a method I researched myself, so it shouldn't be a problem. George nodded. Zhang Zihui cupped his hands again. Then I'll have to trouble Mr. Jin. If you can cure him, I, Zhang Zihui, will owe you a favor. George didn't waste any words, placing one hand on Tian Jinsong's body, channeling a surge of green life energy into him, and then beginning to cast a healing spell. With a combined effect of magic and life energy, Tian Jinsong immediately felt his severed limbs begin to itch, and then they actually started to grow back little by little. In about 10 minutes, Tian Jinsong's limbs, which had been severed for decades, were completely healed. He tried to stand up from his wheelchair and took a few steps, feeling only a little uncomfortable. Thank you, Mr. Jin. Tian Jinsong also bowed deeply to George. To keep the secret, he had been paralyzed for so many years, never expecting that he could stand up again in his old age. Truly a hidden talent. Standing behind the old master, Zhang Chulin's gaze towards George changed again. Through the investigation by Nadu Tong Company, he knew that George's strength was not only what it was during the competition, but that was mostly speculation. Now, it could basically be confirmed. He instantly killed the acting leader of Guangxing with a single blow and even healed Tian Jinsong, whose limbs had been severed for decades. Who knows how many tricks he's up his sleeve? If what Jin Bao said is true, then perhaps this deal isn't impossible. But out of caution, he decided to observe further. Soon after, Su San, Su Si, Feng Bao, Lu Jin, and others arrived. George learned something from their conversation. Xiao and Zai were seriously injured in the battle against the Guangxing superhumans, with Xiao's arm severed. Even if he survived, he would likely be crippled. Good riddance, he thought, his eyes darting around, a plan forming in his mind. After greeting the old master, George headed down the mountain to the temporary hospital where Xiao was staying. Inside the hospital requisitioned by Nadu Tong, Xiao sat on his hospital bed, his expression somber, his heart heavy with bitterness. The Nadu Tong doctor had just given the diagnosis. His arm couldn't be reattached. From today onward, he would be a one-armed swordsman. If that were all, he could accept it. However, because of the loss of an arm, his ki circulation was obstructed, and he might no longer be able to use his ki expelling technique. The Xiao family's lineage was a single lineage tradition, and after so many years of practicing ki expelling, if it were to end with his lineage, he would be letting down his ancestors and himself. But what could he do? It was his own fault for being so unskilled, falling victim to that Guangxing demon scheme. Living like this, it's better to die. Tears welled in his eyes, and Zio punched the bedside. Just then, a voice suddenly rang out in front of him. I can heal your arm, but I need your family's key expelling technique in exchange. Jin Bao. Zio looked up at the suddenly appearing George, a look of suspicion on his face. When did you arrive? Can you really heal my arm? At this point, I have no reason to lie to you. George stepped forward. If you need it, I can heal you right now. And I can assure you, after learning your key expelling technique, I won't pass it on to anyone else in this world. If you can really heal my arm, I'll pass the key expelling technique on to you. Anyway, if I continue like this, the key expelling technique will be lost anyway. Zio saw that George didn't seem to be lying, remained silent for a moment, and then gave his answer. Seeing this, George didn't waste any time, directly placing his hand on Zio's shoulder and beginning to heal his severed arm, while simultaneously reading the memories of key expelling technique from his mind. Early the next morning, after declining the kindness of the old celestial master and the Lu family and sending someone to escort him to the airport, George, holding the Tongshan talisman, went down the mountain openly. The key point is that after going down the mountain, he didn't take a taxi directly to the airport, but instead bought a small electric scooter at a nearby electric vehicle shop and slowly rode towards the airport, deliberately choosing less crowded side roads. Riding my beloved little motorcycle, it'll never get stuck in traffic, George hummed a tune, placing the Tongshan talisman in the front basket and maintaining a speed of 35 miles per hour, his face beaming. I bet you can't resist this temptation. On the way to the airport, the Wang family would definitely make a move, but besides them, there would undoubtedly be many other sects and families eyeing the Tongshan talisman. So he did this deliberately, aiming to lure those sects and families who were still hesitating into seizing the Tongshan talisman. This way, he would save himself trouble, no longer needing to exchange the Tongshan talisman one by one. He could directly copy their memories to acquire their cultivation techniques and Taoist arts. He was a person with a moral bottom line, although that line could sometimes be flexible. He couldn't bear to forcibly seize it, but if others actively tried to take it from him, he naturally wouldn't need to have any more scruples. This was entrapment. As for those major sects and families who could resist the temptation, he could exchange the Tongshan talisman for it later. Is this guy an idiot? Meanwhile, the various sects and families monitoring George were speechless at his arrogance, brazenly placing the Tongshan talisman in the basket of his electric scooter. If he simply took a taxi to the airport and flew back to Beijing, they wouldn't be able to act. After all, if they disturbed ordinary people, the Nadu Tong, a powerful organization, wouldn't let it go easily, which is why many drivers at the foot of Longhu Mountain had been replaced by their own people. However, they hadn't expected him to act this way. It was clear he was highly skilled and daring, wanting to confront them head-on. Even the 10 elders wouldn't dare be so arrogant, let alone a mere Jin Bao. However, to prevent a trap, they carefully checked the surroundings, confirming that no one from Longhu Mountain, the Lu family, or Nadu Tong was there to cause trouble. Chapter 465 Is George Voldemort? Zio Su, are we really not going to get involved? A middle-aged man with thinning hair, only a few strands fluttering in the wind, looked worriedly at Jin Bao, who was surrounded by various sects, families, and individuals on the monitor. While they wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the supernatural world, that was on the premise of not affecting social stability. If Jin Bao's Tongshan talisman had only been stolen, that would be fine, but the fear was that everyone would fight back, leading to a massive melee. Even if ordinary people weren't affected, too many deaths in the melee wouldn't be good for the stability of the supernatural world. Too many deaths would inevitably lead to revenge from the families and sects behind the dead, creating a cycle of vengeance that could easily escalate if not handled properly. As the head of the East China region, if something happened on his turf, even if Su San took the initiative to handle it, he would still bear some responsibility. Su San, standing beside him, offered him a cigarette. Old Dao, don't worry, this guy named Jin Bao is very strong. Most people can't handle him, especially the Wang family. I've already spoken to the old master. If things get out of control, he'll help mediate. Jin Bao's behavior was mysterious, and he had no clue about his true identity, so he wanted to use this opportunity to find out Jin Bao's background. With the old master here, there shouldn't be much of a problem. You've captured so many Quangxing cult members this time, even their acting leader has been dealt with. You've done a great job, don't be so sarcastic. The losses weren't small either. We haven't even figured out Kwang Xing's purpose yet. It's good enough we're not punished. By the way, I just got news that the head office wants the heads of the 6 major regions to attend a meeting. The 6 major regions? Isn't it the 7? Old Liao from South China is dead. I asked around, and it seems his temporary worker did it. This meeting might involve reforming the temporary worker system, so be careful. At this moment, after confirming there was no real danger, someone on the monitor finally couldn't hold back and launched an attack on George. A young man wearing a baseball cap and a mask burst from the ground. He didn't attack George, but instead reached directly for the Tongshan talisman in the bicycle basket. Everyone's goal was the Tongshan talisman, and they had no grudge against George, so obtaining it without fighting would be ideal. Earth, a technique for escaping underground, I might keep that. George waved his hand, and an electric whip shot out, instantly entangling the young man in mid-air, making him scream and cry, before pulling him back into his hand. At that moment, the other hidden figures couldn't sit still any longer and jumped out from all directions, using various methods to attack George's group. Cutting grass into horses, scattering beans to create soldiers, making paper people, glue poison, black magic, controlling birds and beasts, talismans, zombies. George was dumbfounded by all sorts of Taoist techniques. He had thought they were all from small sects and families, but he hadn't expected to see so many clearly established sex techniques, even the Shaolin's Great Compassion Palm. But he quickly realized he had underestimated the situation. While those powerful sects might not actually send people to steal the Tongshan talisman, that didn't mean some of them wouldn't possess the skills and techniques of those sects. In the world of supernatural beings, there were many outcasts from these sects, and others who had secretly learned their techniques and arts. Many of these had joined the Kwang Xing sect, which had always been interested in the 8 extraordinary techniques. Therefore, some of these people might even include Kwang Xing members who had escaped the Battle of Longhu Mountain. However, this is actually a good thing. It saves me a lot of time. Having figured this out, a smile appeared on George's face. He wasn't afraid of a large number of people coming, he was afraid of a small number. This way, he could collect the techniques and arts of those powerful sects, saving him considerable time. After all, trading the Tongshan talisman for techniques and arts from various sects probably wouldn't be so smooth. With a flash of lightning, George left an afterimage in place and began to deal with the attackers one by one. Although there were quite a few of them, most were of average strength, with very few reaching Zhang Lingaiyu's level. This was understandable. Those who advanced to the later stages of the Luotian Grand Ceremony were all the most outstanding disciples from their respective families, top-tier experts even in the outside world. He was basically a one-hit kill, and by the time he returned, a row of stunned attackers was lined up near his electric cart. He copied their memories, extracted the cultivation techniques and Taoist arts he wanted, and then rode off again on his small electric stove. He hadn't killed these attackers, they had come for his Tongshan talisman, and he had taken their cultivation techniques and Taoist arts. It was even, there was no need for further bloodshed. Besides, he estimated that after today, none of these people would dare to covet his Tongshan talisman again. So quick. No wonder he got first place. His strength is truly extraordinary. Old Dao was quite surprised to see Jin Bao effortlessly dispatch all the attackers in the surveillance footage, then knock them unconscious and leave them by the roadside. Even his temporary worker, Xiao Zizhe, would have a tough time winning against so many attackers from different sects and families. This Jin Bao, at such a young age, was incredibly strong. Let's see if the Wang family can force him to use his full strength, Su San muttered to himself, taking a drag on his cigarette. Jin Bao's ability to instantly kill the acting leader of the Kwang Xing sect meant he was already close to the 10 elders. He wasn't surprised that he could handle these average attackers. Now he wanted to see what flaws Jin Bao, when facing the Wang family at full strength, would reveal, allowing him to uncover his true identity. To be honest, after reviewing the information, both he and Su Si suspected that Jin Bao, who returned from the Goblet of Fire, might have been possessed by Voldemort. Only a Western bigwig like Voldemort possessed strength comparable to the 10 elders. This explains why Jin Bao, a 17-year-old 60-year wizard, is performing like this. However, it's only a suspicion. Voldemort didn't display innate lightning abilities during his lifetime. Jin Bao's current strength isn't in dark magic, but rather his innate lightning abilities. Therefore, Everything depends on the final test. If Jinbei can't hold on, and the killing curse, fiend fire, and Crusade's curse are forced out, then Voldemort is likely doomed. If it really is Voldemort, that dark monster, then they need to be on high alert. Jinbei is almost in the Wang family's encirclement. Attention, all teams of superhumans, be on standby. Have Zhang Chulin notify the old master to come over. Seeing that George was about to enter the Wang family's encirclement on the monitor, Su Sam quickly issued the order. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466 No More Pretending, the Truth Comes Out. Oh my, isn't this the cowardly grandfather and grandson duo? What, too lazy to even wear masks? Planning to silence them, George stopped the small electric stove, looking at the large group of people surrounding them, and at the front, Wang Ai, leaning on crutches, and Wang Bing, wrapped up in a wheelchair. George chuckled and teased. Jinbei, you dare to be arrogant even when you're about to die, daring to hurt me like this. Today you'll pay double. Wang Bing trembled with rage upon hearing George's words. His skin was covered in sores from the electric shock, and even with the best medicine, it wouldn't heal for months. Wang Ai, on the other hand, wasn't angry at all, perhaps feeling it wasn't worth getting angry at a dead man. Actually, I originally planned to break your limbs and cut out your tongue, turning you into a cripple. But seeing so many superhumans surrounding you, I thought it wouldn't matter if I killed you, I could blame it on them later. You're dreaming. It seems you don't understand modern technology. George glanced sideways at the sky and shook his head inwardly. He had long since discovered that drones were monitoring his every move high above his head, undoubtedly drones from all-knowing. Therefore, every move the Wang family made was actually under all-knowing surveillance. It was impossible to hide it. Although the world of superhumans had integrated into ordinary people's lives, they sometimes underestimated the power of technology, especially established families like the Wang family. Technology had advanced by leaps and bounds in recent years, progressing at an astonishing pace. All-knowing, as the national agency managing superhumans, enjoyed the nation's most advanced technological achievements. Perhaps they were still lacking in the strength of superhumans, but technologically they were absolutely overwhelming. Since that's the case, then I won't pretend anymore. I'll lay my cards on the table. George climbed down from the small electric stove, pointed at Wang Ai and the group of Wang family superhumans, and laughed. In my eyes, all of you are trash. Killing you is no harder than stepping on a swarm of ants. Grandpa, has he been scared out of his wits? Wang Bing almost laughed until tears streamed down his face. Wang Ai simply waved his hand. Once you get the Tongshan talisman, kill him, then clean up the mess. They'd mobilized a large force this time, using most of the Wang family's superhumans, for the Tongshan talisman. He wasn't afraid of even the old celestial master alone, let alone a mere Jinbei. Idiot. Seeing the numerous Wang family superhumans charging towards them, George leaped into the air and opened his mouth to everyone below. Dragon Slayer magic, roar of the fire dragon. A torrent of three-colored flames descended from the sky, engulfing everyone, including Wang Ai. This time, the power he unleashed was significantly stronger than when he dealt with the old celestial master. So when the flames subsided, not only were all the Wang family superhumans burned to nothing, but even the asphalt road was scorched into a bottomless crater. That's enough fun, time to head back. Waving at the drone in the air, George instantly vanished, reappearing at his home in Beijing. Meanwhile, on a military truck 2 kilometers away from the battleground, Su Sam stared at the disappearing George on the monitor and the bottomless crater he left behind. His half-smoked cigarette fell to the ground. Old Dao, Su San, and Zhang Jiulin beside him all stared wide-eyed, looking utterly shocked. The old celestial master, standing there, muttered, so it was him. No wonder, he had been invited by Su Sam to help mediate between Jinbei and the Wang family. He usually wouldn't get involved in such matters, but Jinbei had done Long Hu Mountain a favor, so he couldn't stand idly by. His original plan was to rush to Jinbei's aid as quickly as possible if he couldn't hold on, and then convene a meeting of the 10 elders to condemn the Wang family's actions. This way, even if Jinbei possessed the Tongshan talisman, he wouldn't be troubled again, thus repaying a small favor. But the ending was unexpected. Jin Bao wiped out the entire Wang family with a single move, and that move looked so familiar. Wasn't it the same move the Taoist master who defeated him that night? At this moment, he understood that Jin Bao was actually the Taoist master in disguise. No wonder he had been so fearless. The Wang family had truly bitten off more than they could chew. Master, do you know Jin Bao's true identity? Hearing the old master's murmur, Zhang Chulin immediately reacted and asked. The old master shook his head. I don't know his true identity, but a few nights ago he disguised himself as an old man claiming to be a Taoist rogue cultivator and challenged me to a spar. Everyone's eyes widened. The old master was a pinnacle of the supernatural world, truly the strongest without anyone to challenge him, and Jin Bao's single attack that wiped out the Wang family was also terrifying. So who won? I'm sorry to disappoint you, I lost completely. It's the first time in my life I've ever lost a fight, and it feels quite novel. The old master stroked his beard, his tone serious. Let's just leave it at that. You'd better not cause him any trouble. It was the Wang family's own fault to bring this on. To be honest, I still don't really know how strong he is, Grandpa. Even you don't know how strong he is. Su San and Su Si both swallowed hard. The old master's meaning was clear. Jin Bao's true strength was probably even more terrifying than he had just displayed, far surpassing their own. The meeting at headquarters is going to be quite a spectacle. I doubt even the temporary worker incident will be as explosive as this. I wonder how the headquarters leaders will handle it. Old Dao, the East China manager standing at the back, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with a tissue. With such an extraordinary figure emerging in the world of supernatural beings, the company is likely to be in for a major shock. Judging from his actions, he has always followed common sense, and his personality hasn't shown any extreme tendencies. This time, he only acted because the Wang family provoked him. I hope the company won't go to extremes either, the old master reminded him again. Jin Bao had done a favor for Longhu Mountain, and the company was there to maintain stability between the supernatural world and ordinary people. He didn't want a conflict between the two. Su San, regaining his composure, immediately smiled and said, Grandpa, you're joking. With such a powerful supernatural being appearing in the country, old Zhao and the others are probably laughing in their dreams. As long as he doesn't do anything too outrageous, the company will be busy treating him like royalty. What he said was true. Given Jin Bao's demonstrated strength and style, the company's final decision would inevitably be to recruit him through appeasement. Currently, supernatural forces are rampant abroad. As long as Jin Bao doesn't do anything too outrageous in the country, such as massacring ordinary people, the company will definitely treat him like a god. Chapter 467 Mastery, Fairy Ball. While George's new clone explored the new world, his clones and other worlds weren't idle either. In the secret underground chamber of the Fairy Tale Guild, George looked at the sphere enveloped in time magic, the stillness of external time, and a bright smile spread across his face. Finally, I've learned it. Through his continuous research into the laws of time in various worlds, coupled with his almost non-stop analysis of the fairy sphere, and occasional observations near Tenrao Island, he finally, for the first time today, successfully unleashed the world's strongest defensive magic, the fairy sphere, entirely on his own. From today onward, unless the enemy he encounters is also proficient in the laws of time, or possesses power sufficient to transcend time, he can rely solely on the fairy sphere to be fearless of any attack and ensure his self-preservation. To be able to break through the limitations of time with power, that would be at least a single universe-level feat in the Marvel Universe. Time to rescue them. Leaving the secret room and arriving above the guild, George looked at the beautifully decorated guild and casually pulled over Wakaba to ask, what's going on today? He hadn't told the guild members that they were going to rescue Natsu and the others today, so why was the guild celebrating ahead of schedule? Guildmaster, you're finally out. A few days ago, Biska proposed to Alzak, and today is their wedding day. Markeo wanted to tell you, but you blocked him with your magical barrier. Oh, then our guild has double happiness today. George stroked his beard with his catpaw, a hint of surprise in his voice. He hadn't expected these auspicious days to coincide, and that Biska had proposed to Alzak first. He knew that Alzak had planned to propose to Biska during the Grand Magician's tournament, but he hadn't performed well and was too embarrassed to do so. He guessed that Biska had figured it out, so she took the initiative to propose. Guildmaster, what double happiness? Wakaba asked, a puzzled look on his face. George smiled. You'll find out soon enough. When does the wedding start? About half an hour later, Wakaba replied. George nodded. There's enough time. I have some things to take care of, but I'll be back before the wedding begins. Without waiting for Wakaba to ask further, he apparated and disappeared from the spot, reappearing above the sea area where he had vanished from Tenrao Island. So it was because of insufficient magic power. After circling the fairy sphere once, George understood why it hadn't dispelled after being released. The fairy sphere was actually in a state of dispelling, but the caster clearly lacked sufficient magic power, causing the dispelling process to be much slower. At this rate, it would take about 6 years for the fairy sphere to stop working. Let me help you. George stretched out his right hand and inserted it directly into the fairy sphere. Using his understanding of the fairy sphere, he quickly merged into it and began to input a large amount of magic power. His magic power was not only abundant, but also incredibly fast, practically indistinguishable from unlimited magic. Therefore, even though the fairy sphere was enormous, enveloping the entire island, a little extra time wouldn't be a problem. 20 minutes later, the giant fairy sphere magic enveloping Tenrao Island gradually dissipated, and Tenrao Island, which had vanished into the time rift, reappeared. Good, they're all still alive. George breathed a sigh of relief, instantly scanning the entire Tenrao Island with his mental power. Confirming that Natsu and the others were merely injured and unconscious, and not in any life-threatening danger, he was relieved. After all, they had faced the world-destroying Black Dragon, Akirano. To be honest, even now, he wasn't confident he could kill the Black Dragon. Its ability to convert any spell back into magic power was troublesome. Only methods like giant magic, which enhanced physical strength and controlled metal for physical attacks, could be effective. Crucially, the Black Dragon could also launch magical attacks, and with surprisingly high power. Therefore, his new clone, second only to one person, planned to obtain the key source flow as soon as possible. He guessed that the key source flow might have a better effect than the divine spirit, and could also return magic to its most basic energy state. His body flashed repeatedly, quickly gathering everyone on Sirius Island together, and then using healing magic to revive them. Everyone, long time no see. George looked at the gradually awakening Makarov group, extending his katpwa and smiling in greeting. George, what happened? Weren't we attacked by the Black Dragon? Where did it go? Everyone looked at George, their faces full of confusion. Their last memory was of holding hands together, facing the Black Dragon's terrifying roar, and facing death together. But in the blink of an eye, the Black Dragon was gone, and George appeared before them. You were attacked by the Black Dragon a year ago. As for why that happened, you'll have to ask our first guild master. George turned to look at the high slope behind them, where a beautiful and adorable little girl, like an elf, stood. The little girl wasn't a physical being, but merely a soul, and crucially, she looked exactly like the first guild master's body in the guild's basement. Considering that he had deactivated the fairy sphere and discovered Makarov was also unconscious, and therefore not the mage who released it, he already had a guess. Hello everyone, I am the first guild master, Mavis Viviamilio. Mavis smiled and waved to the crowd, who were immediately shocked. Even Makarov was stunned. He had seen the first guild master's appearance before, but only as his corpse in the basement, and had never spoken to him like this. At that time, I concentrated everyone's faith and magic power to activate the fairy sphere, one of the 3 great fairy spells. But this also resulted in you all being sealed inside the fairy sphere. Originally, in my ghost form, it would have taken me 7 years to accumulate enough magic power to break the seal on the fairy sphere. Fortunately, this guild mage actually mastered the fairy sphere and contributed a large amount of magic power, allowing the seal to be broken 6 years ahead of schedule. Mavis slowly recounted the events. Greetings, first guild master. I am the 6th guild master, George. George greeted the first guild master, inwardly marveling at her power. Even after being dead for so many years, she could still move in ghost form and concentrate everyone's power to activate such a large fairy sphere. He himself could only release a fairy sphere that could barely protect 2 or 3 people. It's already the 6th generation? It seems the guild is developing very well and has become a great guild. Mavis recalled being woken up a year ago and seeing everyone in the guild working together, a sweet smile appearing on her face before gradually fading away. Chapter 468 Fairy Tales Main Force returns. George, what's this about you being the 6th guild master? After the first guild master disappeared, Makarov dusted himself off and stood up, asking George. He was the third guild master, so George should have been the fourth after taking over. How did he become the sixth? George smiled and explained, well, it all started with a Grand Magic tournament. He quickly recounted the general situation surrounding the Grand Magic tournament. He was the fourth guild master, but he passed the title to Mikao, who then passed it on to him, making him the sixth. Damn it, I actually missed such a big competition. I'm so unwilling. Natsu, hearing that all the major guilds in the country were participating in the Grand Magic tournament, with so many top players competing, and that he couldn't represent his guild and had missed out, was seething with anger. George, however, smiled and said, Natsu, don't worry, the Grand Magic tournament is held once a year. There's another one next year. George, we've been so grateful to you this past year while we were away. Makarov's face was full of emotion after hearing this. Imagine if it weren't for George, they would have remained sealed away for 7 years, and the guild would have fallen into an unimaginable state. Urza reached out to hug George, wanting to embrace him in her steel arms as a token of gratitude, but the now unchanged George dodged. Although his physique was impervious to the impact of armor, he didn't want to experience it again. He could tolerate it without armor. For example, he didn't flinch at all when Mira Jane was holding him tightly in gratitude. Right, it's almost time. We can't delay any longer, or we'll miss Alzak and Biska's wedding. Struggling free from Mira Jane's soft embrace, George lengthened his tail, allowing everyone to grab it, preparing to use apparition. Everyone looked on in astonishment again. What? Alzak and Biska's wedding? In a flash, they all disappeared from Tenrao Island. After everyone disappeared, the first guild master, Mavis, materialized again, muttering to herself, staying on Tenrao Island is so boring, I might as well go see a wedding. With a flash, she too vanished from Tenrao Island. In Magnolia City, at the Caldia Cathedral, the place where Laxus had started the fairy tale civil war, now stood as a wedding hall. Above the cathedral, Marcus, who loved to act as the officiant, temporarily played the role of priest, while Alzak and Biska stood there, deeply in love, dressed in wedding attire. Below stood the fairy tale mages, including Markeo, Ragnarok, and others who had stayed behind, as well as new members who had joined after the Grand Magus tournament, such as Minerva, Sting, and Rogue. Guildmaster, hasn't he arrived yet? Markeo asked Wakaba beside him. Unexpectedly, the Guildmaster, who had been in seclusion researching the fairy sphere, had emerged today. Yesterday, Alzak and Biska had lamented that the Guildmaster couldn't attend their wedding. No, he said he could come back before the wedding starts. I don't know what important thing it is that even a question? What's the Guildmaster doing in seclusion? Why is he leaving now? Don't you all know? Minerva, dressed in a cheongsam, sat to the side, chuckling as she covered half her face with a fan. You mean? Mikao and Wakaba were taken aback, then their faces lit up with excitement. Just then, the doors to the grand hall were suddenly pushed open. And Natsu's familiar voice rang out in the church. Ha ha ha, Alzak, Biska, how could your wedding be without us? We're back, everyone shouted in unison, bringing tears to the eyes of Alzak, Biska, and the old members of Fairy Tale. The other new mages looked at Natsu and the others with curiosity. These were mages who had been famous throughout the continent a year ago, the main force of Fairy Tale. After some hugs and conversation, the wedding proceeded as normal. Exchange of rings, guildmaster's speech, groom kisses bride. The ceremony culminated in a high-spirited atmosphere in the church, complete with an unexpected figure. Kiss. 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 The first guildmaster stood on a chair in the front row, hands raised, excitedly joining in the cheers, while Makarov beside him was dumbfounded. In contrast, George, who had already noticed Mavis's presence, licked his paws and smiled. He didn't think it was a bad thing. The first guildmaster was the top-tier mage who invented the third generation of fairy tale super magic. If he could communicate with her, his magical skills would undoubtedly improve. After the ceremony, the revelry began. Everyone drank, ate, chatted about the past year, and got to know the new members. As evening approached, everything calmed down. George gathered the guild's main members, including the ever-enthusiastic first guildmaster. Although we survived the Black Dragon's attack thanks to Guildmaster Mavis's protection, this isn't a long-term solution. From what I understand, this Black Dragon is called Ecrogia. George recounted everything he knew about the Black Dragon, the Eclipse Gate, and Natsu and the others' origins from over 400 years ago. Therefore, If we don't find a way to defeat the Black Dragon, this world will ultimately be destroyed by it. Now that they had the fairy sphere, their next goal in this world was naturally to eliminate the Black Dragon and uncover more valuable magic. The Black Dragon was difficult to kill, so to be on the safe side, he felt it was best to tell everyone everything. This way, whether it was opening the Eclipse Gate or getting the dragons inside Natsu and Gadgil to help, things would be easier. He didn't need to shoulder this responsibility alone. He could also use this opportunity to communicate with the First Hokage and see if he could extract some more useful information. George, is what you said true? Ignil has been inside me all along. Natsu's expression was filled with disbelief. For years, he had been searching for his adoptive father, Ignil, never imagining that his adoptive father was actually inside his own body. Not just you, but Gadgil and Wendy are too. The two dragons who taught them magic should also be inside them. However, they haven't emerged yet to help you suppress your power and prevent you from completely transforming into dragons, and to prevent the Black Dragon from finding them, George explained. If you want to see them, I have a way to let you see them. The memories he saw in Sting and Rogue's memories couldn't completely resolve his doubts. To know exactly what happened back then, he still needed to find Enna, who brought Natsu and the others 400 years ago, and the three dragons hidden within their bodies. Chapter 469 The Strongest Demon Natsu. Really, hearing George's words, Natsu and the other two became excited. Of course. Hold hands and grab me, and I'll try my best to pull you and a trace of the dragon spirit within you into my spiritual world. That way, you can communicate in my spiritual world. But the prerequisite is that neither you nor they can resist. George extended his cat paw, and the three of them also extended their hands, joined together, and grabbed George's paw. The matter had been explained so clearly, and the three dragons had no reason to refuse. Activate mental power. George split 3 streams of mental power into the 3 of them, guiding their spirits and the spirits of the dragons within them into his temporarily constructed spiritual world. Sure enough, neither the 3 of them nor the 3 dragons resisted, and they were all successfully brought into his spiritual world. Fire Dragon King Ignil, Sky Dragon King Grandile, and Iron Dragon Metarikana. George opened his eyes in his spiritual world and saw Natsu and the other 2, along with the 3 giant dragons behind them. The 3 of them also opened their eyes and saw the giant dragons behind them who had raised and taught them Dragon Slayer magic, like parents to them. What followed was a tearful reunion. The 3 of you, I'd like to know, what exactly happened back then? George asked after the reunion. Ignil sighed. I originally planned to wait a few more years, until Natsu and the others had grown stronger. Since the plan has changed, I'll tell you. Back then, my friend Zareth Dragneel found me. Natsu is actually the strongest demon Zareth created. No wonder the wand made from his hair is so effective. After listening to Neil's account, George understood the whole story better. Back then, the Black Dragon massacred the dragons. Besides those who fled to the northern continent, only a few dragons, including the Fire Dragon King, the Sky Dragon King, and the Iron Dragon King, survived. However, they couldn't defeat the Black Dragon. One day, the Fire Dragon King met a herb-gathering mage named Zareth, and the two became friends. Later, in an accident, the Fire Dragon King fought against End, the strongest demon created by Zareth. Although the newly created End possessed immense potential, it was no match for the Fire Dragon King and was nearly destroyed on the spot. However, it survived, and its demonic power was accidentally sealed. It also lost its memories and became a normal child, the current Natsu. At this time, Zareth conceived a plan. He found another friend, the celestial spirit mage Anna, and devised a plan that held promise for killing the Black Dragon. The plan involved selecting several of the most talented children, teaching them Dragon Slayer magic, and sending them to the future through the Eclipse Gate he created. Once they grew up in the more concentrated magical environment of the future, they would then work together to kill the Black Dragon with Dragon Slayer magic. While teaching Natsu and the others, the White Dragon and the Shadow Dragon died, transforming themselves into Dragon Slayer crystals and implanting them into Sting and Rogue. The Fire Dragon, the Iron Dragon, and the Celestial Dragon resided within Natsu and the others using Dragon Soul technique, helping them suppress their dragon seeds and prevent them from transforming into dragons. Also, because of the Dragon Soul technique, they could not manifest themselves. Because once the Dragon Soul technique is dispelled and they appear, they will dissipate in no time. Half an hour later, George severed the mental link and relayed the Fire Dragon King's words. My suggestion is to find the celestial spirit mage Anna first, and then find Zareth. Since he's been alive all along, my tracking magic should be able to pinpoint his location. They should have some insights into how to kill the black dragon. After all, they were the ones who devised the plan. Finding the two would not only allow him to understand the black dragon better through them, but more importantly, he was very interested in both of them. Anna, as the strongest celestial spirit mage of the present era, was more suitable than Lucy to help him open the Eclipse Gate and carry out his plan to devour the dragon. As for Zareth, needless to say, he was a magical inventor, creating all sorts of powerful spells and using magic to create all sorts of living, sentient, powerful, and diverse demons. He was practically an encyclopedia of magic in this world. If he could communicate more with Zareth, it would definitely greatly help improve his magical skills. Zareth couldn't defeat Acnologia because Acnologia was immune to all magic, making him a counter. However, in terms of magical research, Zareth was probably miles ahead of Acnologia. Zareth, I advise you all not to go looking for him. He's different from 400 years ago. While everyone was discussing Natsu and his group's backgrounds and George's advice, the first guild master, who had been watching the spectacle, suddenly darkened his expression and uttered something that surprised everyone. Before George could ask, Makarov spoke first. Guildmaster Mavis, do you know Zareth? Of course I know him. He's not only my teacher, but also my lover, and the one who killed me. Mavis slowly raised her head, her face revealing a complex expression. Her words caused everyone present, including George, to widen their eyes. No one had expected that the first guild master, Mavis, would have a connection to the black mage Zareth. Meanwhile, everyone's gossip-loving spirit was ignited, eager to hear about the love-hate relationship between the first guild master and Zareth. Since it involved the black dragon, and the safety of the world and the guild, Mavis didn't hide anything, slowly recounting her story with Zareth. She grew up on Tenrau Island, her parents members of the Red Lizard Mage Guild. When she was 6, her parents died in an accident during a mission, and she became a lowly servant, often bullied by other guild members. Her greatest hobby was going to the guild library to read various magic books after cleaning. But not long after, her mage guild was destroyed by the rival guild, Blue Skull, leaving her to live alone on the island. 7 years later, at 13, she met Precht, Yuri Dria, and Warad Sinkin, who were then treasure hunters. Precht was the second guild master, Makarov's deceased father, and now one of the 4 heavenly kings of Ishkar. The 4 friends traveled to Magnolia, intending to cause trouble for Blue Skull, but were defeated and forced to flee. In the forest, they encountered Zareth taking a nap. Zareth taught them magic for a while, then suddenly disappeared. After mastering their magic, the 4 fought Blue Skull again, defeating him decisively, but unintentionally releasing Blue Skull's demon. To save her friends, she released her unfinished super magic, Fairy Law, and her body stopped growing. Shortly after defeating Blue Skull, they founded Fairy Tale in Magnolia City and popularized it. Chapter 470 The Alvarez Empire. But her happiness was short-lived. 3 years later, Yuridol's child, Makarov, was born, allowing her to grasp the true meaning of life. However, she uncontrollably unleashed a death energy that killed Makarov's mother. Terrified, she fled the guild and unexpectedly encountered Zareth again a few years later. From Zareth, she learned that she had been cursed by the god Anxirim for creating the fairy law, thus touching upon the realm of the gods. Zareth himself was also cursed, punished for his magic touching upon the realm of the gods. He was immortal, and all life he loved would be killed by the powerful death energy emanating from his curse, humans, animals, and plants alike. This was why Zareth didn't want to stay in one place for long and didn't want to spend much time with people and build relationships. Their shared experiences led them to fall in love quickly. During their kiss, Zareth's curse activated, and she also lost her life. Heartbroken, Zareth entrusted her to the second guild master, who, in an attempt to revive her, accidentally created the fairy heart. Her soul remained in a cenotaph on Tenrau Island, occasionally seeing Zareth come by, but Zareth, lacking the fairy tale crest, couldn't see her. This was their story. Over the years, Zareth has changed a lot. He's hidden all his human emotions, creating the Alvarez Empire on the western continent, using them as pawns in a strategic game. Going to him would be dangerous. Before her death, Zareth had already established the Alvarez Empire, and now, almost a century later, who knows how far that empire has grown. The emperor of the Alvarez Empire is Zareth. Makarov's face was filled with astonishment after hearing Mavis's account. George turned to Makarov. Guildmaster, you seem to know a lot about the Alvarez Empire. The Alvarez Empire is a super magical military empire comprised of 730 mage guilds, the most famous of which are the 12 Shields of the Holy War. Celestial Serena, the leader of the 4 heavenly kings of Ishgar who betrayed the Eastern Continent, is one of them. In fact, 4 years ago, the Alvarez Empire of the Western Continent planned to invade the Eastern Continent. According to his understanding, their target was the Guild's luminous starlight, also known as the Fairy Heart. However, the invasion was halted due to the threat posed by the Magic Council's magical weapons, the Magic Spirit Power and the Magic Pulse Bomb, FIs. To find out why the Alvarez Empire wanted the Fairy Heart, he sent Mester, skilled in memory and teleportation magic, to infiltrate the Magic Council and gather intelligence. This is all the information Mester returned, but the one thing they still haven't found out is the identity of the mysterious emperor of the Alvarez Empire. It wasn't until today, through the first guild master, that he learned it was actually the infamous black mage Zareth. Zareth's target is the Fairy Heart, the infinite magic crystal formed from the first guild master's body. What does he want? Is he longing for the first guild master's body, or does he have some other purpose? Furthermore, this world does indeed possess higher dimensional life forms, gods who control life and death. After listening to Makarov's explanation, George couldn't help but lift his catpaw and rest his chin on his hand, deep in thought. Combining the information given by the Fire Dragon King, Mavis, and Makarov, both Zareth and Mavis were cursed by Anxarum, the god who controls life and death, for creating magic that offended the gods. He had previously suspected the existence of gods in this world, partly because some magic books recorded it, and partly because of the existence of the celestial spirit realm. However, he hadn't expected the gods of this world to be so petty, actually cursing humans for creating powerful magic. They seemed like difficult beings to deal with. He didn't know what cursed magic Zareth had created, but Mavis's fairy law wasn't some evil magic. Now that the existence of gods had been proven, he needed to be more careful in the future. He had originally thought the Black Dragon was the limit of this world, but now it was proven that the Black Dragon was nothing. There were gods who controlled life and death, or even more gods. Of course, this wasn't entirely a bad thing. When he was strong enough, he might have a chance to communicate with higher-level gods. However, without the strength of a single universe, it was best not to provoke them. At this stage, the main focus was on the Black Dragon and Zareth. Figuring out Zareth's purpose, seeing if he could be won over to deal with the Black Dragon, and collecting more magic from the Western Continent were the priorities. What do you all think? Go to the Western Continent and find that Zareth to ask him clearly. Natsu stood up without fear. He wanted to understand whether he was a demon created by Zareth, and why he was created. A year ago, when he met Zareth on Tenrau Island, Zareth had said some strange things to him that he couldn't understand. Agreed, Gajiel wasn't to be outdone. Since the enemy's target was the guild, they might as well fight. Who is afraid of a fight? Agreed. We're the strongest guild, how can we back down? Young Lady Minerva fanned herself with her fan and raised her hand with a smile. With Minerva's hand raised, the former saber-toothed mages naturally followed suit. Agreed, Laxus also raised his hand. Since the Civil War ended, he had resolved to protect all his guildmates. Since the Alvarez Empire's target was the guild, taking the initiative to eliminate the danger beforehand was a good idea. Laxus raised his hand, and the Thunder Gods followed suit. Agreed. Men don't back down. Elfman flexed his muscles. I agree too. We can't stay passive. The magical spirit's power has been destroyed, and they don't know when they'll attack. Let's take the initiative. Urza crossed her arms and nodded. The guild's mages were known for their recklessness, and even knowing the Alvarez Empire's strength, their hearts were still filled with fighting spirit. However, there were exceptions. For example, Lucy, Lovey, and Macau felt it was better to be cautious. Their opponents were a super empire comprised of 730 mage guilds, and there was also an ancient monster like Zareth who had lived for hundreds of years. The sheer number of mages under their command could overwhelm them. It's too dangerous. I'll go to the Western Continent first and talk to Zareth, see what his attitude is, and then decide how to proceed. Makarov slammed his hand on the table, interrupting the noisy crowd, and slowly spoke. He knew the strength of the Alvarez Empire. If they went there now, they would have no chance of winning if a real battle broke out. Chapter 471 Departure, Western Continent. No, we disagree. Hearing that Makarov wanted to negotiate with Zeref alone, everyone stood up to object. The first generation had said Zeref had changed. If Zeref turned hostile, Makarov going alone would be suicide. Alright, stop arguing. The Guildmaster makes sense, and you all make sense, but I am the Guildmaster now, so listen to me. George raised his hand, casting a silencing spell to silence everyone present, and then slowly said, "Here's what we'll do, Guildmaster Makarov, you stay in the guild to oversee its operations. I will personally lead a team, selecting a group of elites, and then formally visit Zeref in the Alvarez Empire of the Western Continent." Seeing Makarov frown, he continued, "Don't worry about our safety. Even if something unexpected happens, I can't guarantee we can defeat Zeref, but I'm confident we can bring them back safely. Zeref's strength is currently unknown, but since he couldn't kill the Black Dragon, given his strength and methods, it shouldn't be a problem. Mastering time and space magic, even if we can't win, we can at least lead everyone to safety. It's a good opportunity to take everyone on a training trip, to increase their strength, make up for the wasted year, and having more helpers is always a good thing. Geralt and Gilderts are both wizards of 10-level experts. What do you all think?" George asked with a smile, dispelling the mute. Everyone nodded without surprise, and Makarov could only nod helplessly. George was the Guildmaster, and he was always reliable. There shouldn't be any problem. "I'll go with you. If we run into trouble, I can help." At this moment, the first generation also spoke up. Although she was in ghost form, she wasn't completely powerless. Using the guild's magic seal, connecting with the guild member's magical power, she could also cast spells, like the fairy sphere before. If they encountered an insurmountable danger, they could simply use fairy sphere again. George could always dispel it. Then everyone rest for 3 days. "I'll go find Miss Anna." 3 days later, Will set off for the Western Continent. George was naturally delighted that the first generation was willing to go. Perhaps with the first generation's help, they could peacefully defeat Jello. After agreeing on some details, everyone dispersed. Having disappeared for a year, everyone had some personal matters to attend to, so George gave everyone 3 days. He himself activated a tracking spell on the second day, following the golden arrow, and flew towards Anna's location. She's really far away. At full speed, it took George 3 full hours to find Anna on a vast ocean, and he also discovered something very interesting. This is such concentrated time power. At this moment, on the sea in front of him, a small magical sea ship was anchored, the arrow pointing towards the small ship. Clearly, Anna was inside that small ship. Above the small ship, there was a large crack invisible to the naked eye, filled with violent time power. This was a power that only appeared when time magic was used. He also had it when he used Fairy Ball, and Sioran also had it when he used the time card to stop time, but none of them were as violent and powerful as the time power within this time rift. It seems Anna hasn't appeared all these years because of this. George already had a guess in his mind. Knock. 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 Anna, who was sitting cross-legged in her room inside the ship, sensing the time rift above, was suddenly awakened by a knock on the door. She got up and opened the door with some surprise, seeing a golden kitten standing upright in the doorway, and couldn't help but open her eyes wide in confusion. "Excuse me, are you Miss Anna Hartfilia? You know me." Hearing the golden kitten call her name immediately, Anna blinked. "You know, less than a handful of people in this world know of her existence, so why would this kitten know her? I am George, the current Guildmaster of Fairy Tale. I have some things I would like to discuss with Miss Anna. Is it convenient?" Fairy Tale Guild. Anna's heart skipped a beat, then she nodded and stepped aside. She knew this guild. When she emerged from the Eclipse Gate, some accidents occurred, and Natsu and the other 4 were scattered across the continent. For the first 2 years after her escape, she searched for the 5 children, and it was during this process that she discovered the Time Rift. This Time Rift was a fissure created when she used the Eclipse Gate to travel to the future, causing time distortion, which the world then automatically repaired. If she could control the opening and closing of the Time Rift, perhaps she could use its power to completely seal the Black Dragon within. Therefore, after finding the 5 children and discovering they were doing well, she didn't disturb them further, but instead remained guard in the Time Rift. When she found Natsu, he had already joined the Fairy Tale Guild, and the guild members treated him well, so she remembered the guild. Without further ado, here's what happened, George said after entering the cabin. explaining the whole situation to Anna without further ado. Anna, after listening, also recounted her own experience. "Alright, I'll go with you. I've been looking for Zareth all these years. I never imagined he'd become emperor in the Western continent. No wonder I couldn't find him, sending the 5 children to a future with stronger magic, where they would grow up and slay the Black Dragon, was originally Zareth's plan." So, after arriving in the future, she naturally looked for Zareth. But all she heard were negative things about him, the most evil black mage, who created countless demons that slaughtered countless people. And it was generally accepted that Zareth was already dead. She searched the continent but couldn't find any trace of Zareth, assuming he had died in an accident. That's why she pinned her hopes on the Time Rift. Her plan was to gain control of the Time Rift, and once the 5 children had grown up, they would work together to seal the Black Dragon within it. Since Zareth was still alive and had built a powerful force, she was naturally willing to seek his help to complete her plan from years ago. Another 10% chance of success. Natsu, the first Hokage, the Fire Dragon King, and Anna were all Zareth's friends. With them working together, they could most likely resolve the issue peacefully. Even with the enemy's strength unknown, he still hoped for a peaceful resolution. If it truly came to the point of no return, it wouldn't be too late. Fight if you can win, run if you can't, and come back when you're stronger. This had always been his fighting philosophy. In any case, given his rate of improvement, he could get his revenge sooner or later. Chapter 472 The Golden Dragon Magical Spaceship. 3 days later, at the Fairy Tale Guild's main gate, George, along with Gilderts, Jilil, Laxus, Urza, Minerva, and other guild members, all S-class mages, along with the first Hokage and Anna, bid farewell to Makarov and set off. "Guildmaster, should we first go to the port to take a ship to the Western continent, and then sneak into the Imperial Palace?" Natsu asked anxiously as soon as they set off, outlining their next plan. George reached into his transformation space and pulled out a palm-sized spaceship, then tossed it. The spaceship rapidly expanded in midair, transforming into a gigantic golden dragon-shaped spaceship. "Sneak in? No, we're the strongest guild in the Eastern continent. Of course, we'll pay a respectful visit openly, a polite approach before resorting to force." This golden dragon-shaped spaceship was a guild vehicle he had created in his spare time while researching fairy spheres, combining alchemy and weapon-making techniques from various worlds. He named it the Golden Dragon. Possessing a range of magical effects such as self-awareness, invisibility, a super-strong defensive barrier, a vast space, and the ability to freely change size, Fairy Tale, being the strongest guild, couldn't possibly rely on trains or carriages for every major mission. That would be too undignified. What a huge, dazzling magical spaceship! The entire guild couldn't help but gasp in amazement as the Golden Dragon spaceship appeared in the air and slowly landed. They had seen magical spaceships before, but one this large and dazzling was truly a first. Golden Dragon greets its master. The Golden Dragon embossed on the spaceship's surface swam around and respectfully bowed its head in George's direction. The spaceship is talking. Seeing that the Golden Dragon possessed its own consciousness and was alive, everyone's eyes widened again. Although they had witnessed the various magical items George had created for the guild members over the past 3 days, including special teleportation items like door keys, seeing the Golden Dragon, a super powerful magical spaceship with self-awareness, today still left them utterly stunned. In the short year they were sealed away, the guild had changed so much. Guildmaster Cat is truly amazing. His name is Golden Dragon. You can treat him not as a spaceship, but as a member of the guild, a partner. That way, you won't get seasick. George had Golden Dragon lower the ladder, then specifically instructed Natsu and the other dragon slayers. If that still doesn't work, the spaceship has specially designed levitation rooms. As long as you stay in the room, you won't get seasick. When building the Golden Dragon, he had considered the seasickness problem of dragon slayers like Natsu, Laxus, and Gajiel. Those levitation rooms were equipped with levitation and imprinting charms, making it feel like being in space. Floating continuously naturally prevents seasickness. Golden Dragon, set sail. Let's meet the Albus Empire. Meet Zareth, standing at the bow. Catpwa waved, the runes on the Golden Dragon's surface activated, the windproof shield rose, and it transformed into golden light, flying westward. Because of its speed, the spaceship crossed a vast ocean and arrived at the coastline of the Western continent in just 1 day. However, They had only been on the coastline for a short time when they were stopped by several large magical spaceships of the Albus Empire. This is Albus Empire territory. Who are you? The Albus Empire's magical spaceships surrounded the Golden Dragon, their long magical cannons extended. If the Golden Dragon showed any sign of resistance, they would blast it to smithereens. On the lead ship, a mage clad in Imperial armor pointed in their direction and loudly questioned them. George cast a super powerful megaphone spell on himself and shouted directly towards the entire Western continent. George, the Guild Master of Fairy Tale of the Eastern Continent, wishes to pay homage to His Majesty Spriggan of the Albus Empire. This concerns the Black Dragon Echnologia, and I implore His Majesty to grant him an audience. Zareth called himself Spriggan in the Albus Empire, so the people of the Western Continent called him Emperor Spriggan. To avoid wasting time on unnecessary trouble, George chose to use his amplified voice, loud enough to reach the capital of the Albus Empire, to directly state his purpose. He was confident that the names of Fairy Tale and Echnologia would be enough to summon them from Zareth. The Eastern Continent's Mage Guild dares to act so arrogantly in the Western Continent. You're courting death, the Imperial Mage leading the opposing force paled upon hearing George's amplified voice. 4 years ago, the Empire had already prepared for an Eastern expedition. Had His Majesty not suddenly returned to stop it, they would have already destroyed the Eastern Continent and unified the two continents. Even so, everyone in the Western Continent knew that an Eastern expedition was inevitable. Therefore, the Eastern Continent's Mage Guild was naturally their future enemy. Take them down first, then send them to Minister Agil in the capital, Vistarion, for judgment. With a leader's order, several Imperial Mage ships launched an attack on the Golden Dragon. Let us handle this. Seeing the Golden Dragon under attack, Natsu and the others couldn't sit still any longer. George waved his hand dismissively. Ignore them, they're just small fry. They can't break through the Golden Dragon's defenses. Let's wait for someone in charge to arrive. As George finished speaking, a huge magic circle lit up beneath the Golden Dragon, and the 5 elements Kabbalah defensive barrier rose. The magical cannons from the Imperial ship struck the 5 elements Kabbalah defensive barrier, disappearing without even a ripple. Have something to eat? No rush. With another wave of his hand, a large table appeared on the deck of the Golden Dragon, covered with food and wine he had conjured using his transformation magic. Seeing that the Golden Dragon's defenses were indeed unbreakable, everyone happily sat down to eat and drink, waiting patiently with George. Meanwhile, the leader outside, seeing that no matter how the magical cannons bombarded the Golden Dragon, they couldn't break through its defenses, realized that the Magic Guild from the Eastern Continent was no ordinary force, and temporarily halted his attack. This was mainly because the Golden Dragon hadn't advanced further or launched a counterattack, and news had also arrived from the capital via magic crystals. After a standoff of about an hour, a giant magical spaceship, not much smaller than the Golden Dragon, flew in from afar and stopped in front of it. Looks like the boss has arrived. Sensing a powerful magical presence aboard the new spaceship, George stood up from his table. To be honest, aside from the dragons he encountered in the Northern Continent, this was the first time he had sensed such powerful magic from a human. Magic far stronger than that of Gilderts and Jelil, both at the Wizarding 10 level. He almost thought it was Zareth himself. However, upon seeing the newcomer, he realized it wasn't. The newcomer was an elderly mage who appeared to be around 100 years old. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473 The 12 Shields of the Holy Guardian. I am August, the head of the 12 Shields of the Empire. I have been ordered by His Majesty to receive you all. May I ask which one of you is Guild Master George? The Magic King August, wand in hand and clad in a magic robe, floated up from his magic-powered airship and arrived opposite the Golden Dragon. George waved his hand to dispel the Golden Dragon's defensive array and, in turn, spread his wings and appeared before August. I am George, Guild Master of Fairy Tale. Please follow me to the capital. His Majesty wishes to receive you all in the palace there. August glanced at George with some surprise, then replied gently. He hadn't expected that the mage whose magic power was so great that his voice could travel from the coastline to the capital was actually a small golden cat. However, he wasn't careless. Because his intuition told him that this cat was no pushover, the magical barrier on the magic-powered airship alone was extraordinary. He had just heard the general leading the group report that their magic-powered airship had bombarded it with all its might for quite some time without any effect. Moreover, even under his pressure, the cat hadn't shown any unusual behavior. "No problem, then please lead the way, sir," George nodded and returned to the Golden Dragon. Meanwhile, on the deck of the Golden Dragon, a group of fairy tale mages looked at August in the air, their faces grave. They were no weaklings and could clearly feel the pressure emanating from August's terrifying magical power. "The 12 shields, he seems quite formidable," Gilderts crossed his arms and couldn't help but exclaim. Even he felt immense pressure facing August, let alone the others. "Why? I feel a sense of familiarity with him, like I've seen him somewhere before." Mavis, in her ghost form, sat on the mast, watching August return to his magic ship, a puzzled look on her face. Anna, from 400 years ago, felt the same way. She marveled at how much richer the magical power of the future world was, enabling the birth of so many powerful mages. She also wondered if Zeraph's initial intention in establishing the Alvarez Empire was to gather the power of the Western continent to destroy the Black Dragon. Pressure is a motivator, it's a good thing. As for George, he observed everyone's expressions but didn't say much. Currently, apart from Gilderts and Jelil, the others, including Laxus, are still somewhat lacking in strength. More pressure will benefit their improvement. With August's ship leading the way, there were naturally no more Imperial magical ships to intercept them, and the Golden Dragon arrived smoothly at the Imperial capital, Vistarion. What a huge city! Seeing the magnificent city ahead, more than 10 times larger than the capital of the Fiori Kingdom, the fairy tale members exclaimed in surprise. This was understandable. The Fiori Kingdom was the most powerful kingdom in the eastern continent, but it was still just a kingdom. Alvarez, on the other hand, was an empire, having unified the entire western continent for over a century, so naturally, it couldn't compare. "Collect." The Golden Dragon landed, and George reached out and shrunk it, storing it in his transformation space. August, who had been observing from the front, murmured to himself, "A magic that changes the size of objects. Somewhat similar to Brandish's shape magic. So this is the magic guild my mother founded? It's certainly not simple." The fairy tale mages were observing him and the Empire, and he was also observing the fairy tale mages. When his mother, Mavis, died from his father Zeraph's curse, he was already born, which gave him immense magical power from birth. The second fairy tale guild master separated him from the crystal and abandoned him, but he unexpectedly encountered his biological father, Zeraph. Zeraph adopted him because he looked very much like his mother and brought him to the Western continent. Therefore, he had always known about the Fairy Tale Magic Guild. If it weren't for his father wanting the fairy heart, he wouldn't have wanted to be enemies with a guild founded by his mother. Entering the city, they walked along the wide stone-paved streets to the magnificent palace. In front of the king's palace, the group suddenly stopped. Because the palace ahead was emanating 12 extremely powerful magical energies, one of which was particularly noticeable, carrying an incredibly terrifying aura of death. It felt as if it could snatch your life at any moment. "It's Zeraph's aura, he's really here." Anna was very familiar with Zeraph's aura and sensed it immediately. However, it seems different from before. Something is missing. Although the 400-year-old Zeraph's magical energy carried a strong aura of death, it wasn't cold, but now Zeraph's magical energy felt like a 1,000-year-old iceberg to her. "Zeraph, what exactly do you want to do?" The first Hawkage, in his ghost form, looked at the palace ahead with a complicated expression. "Why do I feel like I can't breathe?" Lucy, the weakest among them, hadn't even entered the palace yet, but the pressure of the magical energy emanating from within was already making her body tremble slightly. Not only Lucy, but even Natsu and the others seemed to be under considerable pressure with every step they took. Only Gilderts and Jello were somewhat more relaxed. It seems that besides Zeraph, the remaining 11 members of the Spriggan 12 are all here. George took the lead, unleashing a terrifying burst of magical power. His powerful aura shattered the oppressive aura emanating from the palace, instantly easing the tension for everyone. Although he hadn't transformed into his dragon form, his cat form, honed through numerous world clones, had reached the level of a top-tier mage in that world. The guildmaster's strength is so much greater than it was a year ago. Natsu and the others were deeply shaken by the magical power George unleashed. They knew George was strong, but in their eyes, His strength was still based on his time a year ago when he took on the 100-year mission to the northern continent. Back then, George's magical power was at most slightly stronger than Gilbert's and Jello. But now, they were clearly on a completely different level. Equally surprised was Magic King Augustus, who was leading the way. The intensity of the magical power George had just unleashed was even greater than his own. While magical power doesn't fully represent strength, it was enough to illustrate a point. Perhaps President George's magical power exceeded his previous expectations. However, it wasn't a major problem. Even if he was stronger, he was no match for the 12 shields, especially with his father present. Therefore, if these people couldn't persuade his father, they were likely destined to die here prematurely. A large portion of the 12 shields wanted to wage war, conquer the eastern continent, obtain the fairy heart for their father, and win his favor. Chapter 474 Hate Me, Little Brother. Upon entering the palace, George immediately spotted Zareth, seated high on his throne, clad in a black magic robe, his face expressionless. Below him stood 2 rows of 11 mages. Each of these 11 possessed magical power surpassing that of the 10 wizard saints. Their expressions towards George and his companions were a mix of indifference, disdain, and murderous intent. None of them were friendly. They seemed even less approachable than August, who at least appeared decent on the surface. Your Majesty, all the people have been brought. Magic King August bowed respectfully to Zareth and stood beside him. Zareth first turned to look at the location of the first ghost, paused briefly, then looked at Anna. Long time no see, Anna. Long time no see, Zareth. I found a time rift. Perhaps it can seal the black dragon. Anna was about to tell Zareth about her discovery of the time rift and her plans, but Zareth interrupted her abruptly. It's useless, Anna. I know about that time rift. It can't trap Agnologia, it will only make him stronger. He can devour that time power. He created the Eclipse Gate, and he proposed the plan. 400 years had passed. Anna could sense the time rift created by time travel the moment she appeared. How could he not know? But after research, he discovered that the time rift couldn't trap the black dragon at all. No one knew Agnologia's power better than him. Before Agnologia transformed into a dragon, he had even learned black magic from him. Useless. Hearing Zareth's answer, Anna stiffened. She hadn't expected that her plan, which she had prepared for so long, would be in vain. Just a mere black dragon. I'll deal with it. I can use it to forge my 9th Dragon Slayer crystal. All dragons will decay before me. At this moment, an orange-haired male mage carrying a sword wheel stepped forward arrogantly. He exuded powerful magic and 8 different magical auras. To George, he seemed a bit like a Chunibao, a person with delusions of grandeur. Serena, the leader of the 4 heavenly kings of Ishgar, the strongest Dragon Slayer mage possessing 8 Dragon Slayer crystals, however, being a fellow Dragon Slayer mage, he still guessed the orange-haired man's identity. Too arrogant, he shook his head. Serena's magical power was indeed strong, far surpassing the level of the 10 wizard saints like Makarov. He was even estimated to be much stronger than Gilbert's and Jello. But wanting to kill Agnologia was simply a pipe dream. No matter how powerful his 8 Dragon Slayer magic were, they would be useless against Agnologia, completely ineffective. He had personally witnessed Agnologia's strength. They were not on the same level. Natsu, we meet again. You arrived much earlier than I expected, but unfortunately, you are still so weak. How can someone as weak as you fulfill your mission? It seems I need to give you some motivation to accelerate your growth. Clearly, Zareth didn't believe Serena had the strength to fight Agnologia either, completely ignoring him and focusing his gaze directly on Natsu. However, after a moment, his expression was filled with disappointment. At a very young age, his parents and younger brother were killed by dragons. To resurrect his brother, he began researching forbidden magic involving death after becoming a mage. Ultimately, he created the most powerful fire demon, and, using his brother's corpse, thus incurring the wrath of the god Anxirum and being cursed. At first, he didn't care, as the curse granted him immortality, allowing him more time to research his beloved magic. Only later did he realize how terrible the curse was. All the lives he cherished were taken by death, leaving him living a life worse than death. Therefore, he began creating various powerful demons, hoping they would kill him and free him. But ultimately, he discovered that none of the demons could do it. So he placed all his hopes on the strongest demon he created at the beginning, Natsu. He believed that with Natsu's potential, if he grew up, he might be able to end his life and free him. If even Natsu couldn't do it, then he could only fuse with a fairy heart, travel back in time, and completely rewrite all history. Originally, Natsu was sealed by the fairy sphere, and he could only wait patiently. Now that Natsu has been unsealed, he decided to make Natsu feel despair in order to accelerate Natsu's growth. Only these emotions could make Natsu grow faster, driven by revenge, and then kill him. Hate me, little brother, and achieving this was simple, just kill Natsu's friends. What's wrong with this guy? Seeing Zeref suddenly unleash a strong killing intent after saying some inexplicable things, George frowned. According to the information he had, even if Zeref wanted the fairy heart, there was no reason for him to have such killing intent towards them. Unless there was some information he didn't know. Your Majesty Spriggan, we've come to discuss cooperation. Our eastern and western continents can unite against a black dragon. There's no need for war. Join forces with your eastern continent? Based on your meager strength? If it weren't for your Majesty's intervention, I could have easily wiped out your eastern continent 4 years ago with my direct forces. Before Zeref could answer, Agile Ram, one of the 12 shields of the Holy War, with dark skin and a bare upper body, retorted with a cold snort. It wasn't arrogance. He had indeed led the annihilation of many nations in the western continent. He had investigated and found that the nations of the eastern continent were weaker than those of the western continent. It was truly no challenge. Don't forget, the Magic Council also possesses the Magic Pulse Bomb, FIS. Wasn't that why you stopped your invasion 4 years ago? Gerald immediately countered. His mental form had once been a member of the Magic Council and was naturally well aware of the situation at the time. At this moment, Zeref, seated on the throne, finally spoke again. Fizz? That's magic I invented, so why would I be afraid? 4 years ago, I stopped them from starting a war simply because Natsu hadn't grown up yet. Merging with a fairy's heart to travel back in time was just a backup plan. If Natsu could kill him, he wouldn't have chosen this path. Hey, you. You keep saying I need to grow up and fulfill my mission. What mission? And what about Igneel saying I'm a demon you created? Explain yourself. Natsu, who had been holding back, finally couldn't contain himself any longer and jumped out, pointing at Zeref and loudly questioning him. Chapter 475 Mebius, the Spirit Collector. Insolence. How dare you disrespect His Majesty the Emperor? The Spriggan 12 were furious at Natsu's rudeness. In their eyes, Zeref was the great emperor who single-handedly built the empire, ending the chaos in the western continent and bringing peace. And after all these years, he hadn't aged at all. He was practically a god in their hearts. Natsu, you don't need to know why. Just hate me, despise me. Zeref raised his hand to stop the Spriggan 12 from attacking, his gaze on Natsu filled with sorrow. He didn't want to do this, but he had no choice. It was perhaps the best option. Larked, kill everyone except Natsu. Yes, father. Standing on Zeref's other side, a young man dressed very similarly and carrying a cross stepped forward. His name was Larkadragnil, one of the earliest and most powerful demons created by Zeref. He always took pride in being given the same surname as Zeref. Upon hearing Zeref's command, he clasped his hands together and unleashed the wide area sleep spell, covering all the fairy tale mages. Sleep of death, powerful magic erupted from Larkade, causing the fairy tale members' eyelids to droop. Such powerful sleep magic, even Gilderts, Jelil, and Laxus, at their level, were beginning to falter under Larkade's magic. The others were even less affected. It's worth noting that Laxus was essentially immune to Mystigan's sleep spell. What did this mean? It meant that if a real fight broke out, the Spriggan 12 might only need to send out one Larkade to wipe out the entire fairy tale team. Don't even mention you, even Echnologia can't escape my magic. No one can. Ahem. While your magic is indeed impressive, you've gone a bit overboard. George coughed, then flicked his tail, unleashing a beam of blue light that swept through Gilderts and swept over all the fairy tale members. He discovered that the shield of the Holy 12 were indeed strong, but each of them was overconfident, perhaps because they had never lost on the western continent. Quickly awaken, the resurrection charm, a spell to quickly wake a sleeping person. After George's extensive research, he had essentially modified all single-target spells in the Harry Potter world to have area of effect attacks. Therefore, his resurrection charm was also a version of the chain lightning spell. Due to George's powerful resurrection charm, all the fairy tale mages instantly awoke, no longer affected by Larkade's sleep spell. He actually broke Larkade's spell, Zareth and the other shield of the Holy 12 showed surprise upon seeing Larcade's spell broken. This level of sleep spell would significantly affect even them, breaking it wasn't easy. Similarly, Larcade himself, who had cast the spell, also changed his expression. I didn't intend to defile Father's palace and planned to let you all die peacefully. Since you've chosen death, don't blame me. Saying this, he took out the cross behind him, his magical weapon. However, before he could launch an attack, George preemptively struck. Sleep well, little one, was a modified lullaby. He was a master of sleep magic. Besides learning some sleep magic from this world, he also had the sleep magic from the Harry Potter world, and Lothian sleep magic that could put Morgoth to sleep. Combining these sleep spells, he was far superior to Larcade in this area. The lullaby's power was entirely targeted at Larcade, maximizing its effect. How could this be? Larcade had just started to move when he suddenly felt his mind go blank, then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the ground, falling into deep sleep. This scene instantly made the other 12 shields' expressions serious. They realized that while the other mages of Fairy Tale were indeed of average skill, their guild master, this golden cat, seemed quite formidable. Your Majesty Spriggan, please hold your hand. Our guild master Mavis wishes to see you. She has something to say to you. Seeing Larcade collapse, and the situation on the verge of erupting, George immediately shouted. Zareth clearly had some hidden secrets he didn't know, so he planned to use his last trump card. If a peaceful resolution still wasn't possible, then fighting would be the only option. In any case, the fight would take place on Western Empire territory. If he won, he would copy everything about the Western Empire, including Zareth's memories. If he lost, he could simply take everyone back to the Eastern continent. Wait. Upon hearing Mavis's name, Zareth paused, raising his hand again to stop the actions of the Spriggan 12. Mavis was dead, but he could faintly sense her presence here, just as he often felt it on Tenrau Island. Guildmaster Mavis, don't resist for a moment. George turned to look at Mavis in her ghost form beside him, and Mavis nodded. Only Fairy Tale Guild mages could see Mavis in her ghost form, so to make Zareth see her, he would need to use other methods. And his newly created clone had just learned a method to solve this problem. Spirit binding. George stretched out his hand towards Mavis, his magical power transforming into black key, which quickly enveloped Mavis. Soon, Mavis's soul, enveloped in the black key, entered George's body under the effect of spirit binding, completing the binding process. Because Mavis offered no resistance throughout, even though she had only recently mastered this technique, she completed it smoothly. Come out. A moment later, George waved his hand again, and Mavis's soul, now fully imbued with ki, appeared before everyone's eyes in a form that seemed almost tangible. Zareth, I know what you're afraid of. I have a way to lift the curse and liberate you from immortality. After appearing, Mavis spoke directly to Zareth. In fact, from the few words Zareth had just spoken, she had already understood his true purpose. She shared the same curse as Zareth and was once his closest confidant, making it easier for her to understand Zareth's inner thoughts than others. During her time wandering after leaving Fairy Tale, her greatest wish was for someone to end her life so she would never harm anyone else. Mavis, I never thought I'd see you again. Zareth's expression was complex upon seeing Mavis. A surge of death energy seemed about to erupt within him, but he quickly suppressed it. However, once suppressed, his expression turned cold again. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.